This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast.
Can I welcome members, officers and the public to today's meeting of the Environment Committee. Our main item of business today is a discussion on London's regional parks and connecting people and nature. Can I ask that people make sure their electronic devices are switched off or to silent mode? Can I also ask that guests and members position their microphones so that they can be heard clearly? Can I start by asking our clerk, Hannah Barlow, if any apologies have been received?
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies received from Assemblyman Butt-Prince.
Thank you. Could I ask the committee to note the recommendations set out at item 2 and ask if any members have any interests to declare as part of this meeting?
Noted. No.
Chair, just for clarity and transparency, I was a cabinet member in Ealing at the point that we were launching the vision for a West London regional park.
Excellent. And I should also add that I'm a trustee of the Royal Parks, given that we have a Royal Parks officer here today. Membership of the committee, terms of reference and standing delegations of authority. Can I ask the committee to note the membership and chairing arrangements, the terms of reference and standing delegations of authority for the Environment Committee as agreed by the London Assembly at its annual meeting on the 11th of March 2026? Thank you. Sorry? Oh, 11th of May. Even with my readers on, I still squint. So 11th of May, yes? Noted. Just for the tape. Can I ask the committee to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 3rd of March 2026 to be signed by me as a correct record? Excellent. And can I also ask the committee to note the completed, closed and ongoing actions arising from its previous meetings? And can I ask the committee to note the action taken by the former chair under delegated authority following consultation with party group lead members, namely to agree the letter on the expansion of heat networks in London and the letter responding to London City Airport's consultation on airspace change proposals? Thank you. And could I take this opportunity to thank the outgoing chair for her excellent work over the last year, and I hope to be able to measure up to the sterling performance which she gave us over that 12 months. Let me see. So we now move on to the main item of business for today, a discussion on London's regional parks and connecting people and nature. So I'd like to welcome our first panel of guests. We have Abby Crisostomo, Head of Green Infrastructure in the GLA. We have Darren Sher, MBE, Director of Parks for the Royal Parks Trust. Graham Horton, Deputy Director for Thames Solent Area Team for Natural England. Sam Parry, Chief Programme Officer for the Regional Park Ealing Council. And Paul Roper, Head of Projects for the Lee Valley Regional Park Authority. Good afternoon. So we're going to go straight into the questions. If I can remind members to keep their questions short and any supplementaries equally short, and if we can encourage guests to be brief and concise as we are up against time. So this is for everybody, therefore. Nice, easy one to start with. What is the role of regional or larger destination parks in providing access to green and wild spaces in London? And what is it you think that distinguishes them from more local or district level parks? Anybody wish to start us off? Don't be shy. Darren.
First, if that's okay. So I think destination parks are parks where has a number of features, a number of activities, acts as a draw to not just the local community but wider communities. So it has a range of facilities that offers more to the wider community as well as the local community. So I think it's a destination point for both people and wildlife. So it's having a list of activities, more activities than in the local parks.
Okay, thank you. Any further? Or we're all happy with that answer? Sam?
Happy with that, but I think just to add, I think given the scale of regional parks, it provides a real opportunity for active travel, for walking, running, cycling, to use green spaces to connect towns and other areas for people to commute through as well.
Excellent. Yes.
Yeah, I would just add, thank you, that we know the provision of access to parks is not equal across London, and having larger regional parks improves that accessibility by the scale, just brings the park into more people's proximity and close to their lives, which Excellent. I think is an extra value.
Okay, thank you. Second question. This is really to the West London Regional Park. Could you give us a flavour of what the main aims of the West London Regional Park are?
Absolutely, yes. We're looking to connect around 500 hectares of green space together. So a lot of these green spaces already exist in the west of London, but we want to improve the connectivity between them to make it easier for local people to get to those green spaces and travel between them as well. So there's a real focus on connecting these green spaces to the local community. We're also looking to restore nature, respond to the climate emergency. We have significant problems with flooding in West London, and we're looking to build in areas where we can hold some of that flood water, reduce the inaccessibility during those flood events. We want the regional park to be financially sustainable as well, to ensure that we're generating income to maintain it in the long term. We want to improve those connections between green spaces but also blue spaces as well. The River Brent flows through the regional park. We want to increase opportunities for people to interact with those blue wetland habitats. We want to celebrate the heritage of the area and the green spaces within them. And finally, we want to inspire local people. So we're looking to work with our cultural team and with local people to input new public art facilities within the regional park as well.
Okay, thank you. And have the boundaries of the regional park now been set, or are you looking possibly for potential for expansion? And also, how are you looking towards pathfinding and pointing people from surrounding areas to come and enjoy the park itself?
So in March, we had a launch event for the regional park where we unveiled our map. That map is indicative at the moment, but it gives an idea of the extent of the regional park. We have extended the regional park from Ealing down into Hounslow. So the extent now goes from the highest point in Ealing at Horsenden Hill all the way down to the River Thames. We are also looking at creating green fingers, which are routes from the regional park into local communities to make it easier for people to walk and cycle into the regional park. So there's still some work to do to finalise the exact boundaries, but we're well on the way.
Excellent. Thank you. Assembly Member Polanski.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Abby, if I can begin with you. So the London Plan didn't have a lot to say about regional parks, as in the previous one, other than defining their size. So what is the process for creating a new regional park?
There's not a defined process for it. Actually, there's a few different ways that we consider regional parks. There's sort of six parks that we currently consider regional parks: the Colne Valley, Epping Forest, Lee Valley, Richmond Park, Wimbledon, Putney Commons, and Wandle Valley. And this is partly to do with size. It's partly to do with how it's managed. But there's also other large plots of land that fit the size threshold that we don't really consider regional parks. Things like the Thames Chase Community Forest or the Enfield Landscape Recovery Scheme area. They're not necessarily defined spaces. I think that's one of the big differences, is whether it's a kind of connected, defined place and that not too broken up by other things. And so I think that's what's quite exciting about the conversations we're having with West London and other places about increasing the number of regional parks and really improving the way we think about them and their accessibility, and actually having a new regional park in such an urban and accessible area is another way to really I think, celebrate the benefits of regional parks. But the London Plan, the current London Plan, does talk about defining different sizes of public open space. Obviously, we're working on the updated London Plan, and so we will be continuing the work on how we consider really the accessibility of open space. I'll mention now, but maybe not go into it yet, but that we just published, I think a week or 2 weeks ago, some of the evidence work on public open space that we did in part of the preparation of the update to the London Plan.
Thank you. And in the updated London Plan that's coming, are there plans to include more information about the role of regional parks?
Not necessarily not generic information about the role of regional parks, but it will. We're aiming for it to consider accessibility of all parks, not just regional parks, but to think about areas of deficiency in public open space and accessibility of green spaces in a different way than the current one.
Thank you. And the 2016 London Plan identified potential locations for new regional parks in South East London along the Green Chain and in Barnet in North London. Would you like to see other new regional parks established in London?
I think it's always great to see more opportunities for more green space in London.
Do you have any plans or anything that's in the pipeline?
There are plans in the pipeline. I mean, obviously, you know that we're investing in West London Regional Park,
right.
But I can't talk about other plans yet.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else on the panel like to add anything they would like to see in the new London Plan? Specifically about regional parks, as opposed to... Paul?
I think the one of the points that came out, and linking back to the first question, is that connectivity thing for people and wildlife. It's something we've done a lot, and we're working on a number of projects at the moment to try and connect other green spaces and local areas with the Lee Valley Regional Park.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
I'm going to bring in Assemblymember Bolf, then Assemblymember Harani, and then I have a second question, if I may. So, Assemblymember Bolf.
Ms Chrysostomi, has the GLA assessed the role of regional parks and green corridors in mitigating London's urban heat island effect, particularly in high-density outer London growth areas?
Yeah, so in March, we published the London Green Infrastructure Framework, which brings together several different data sets to do with how green infrastructure can provide benefits to London. And one of those was about urban cooling and how do we identify the areas of London with the most need for green infrastructure because of heat risk. So, so we have done that analysis, and that's public now. It's all accessible, and it's an interactive map. People can be using it for their own analyses, and we are using it now to inform some of our funding programs.
So we are looking towards using parks to mitigate the effects of climate change.
I think we have to look to a lot of different options to do that. But yes, parks is definitely one of them. All sorts of green infrastructure along, street greening as well.
And can you give an assurance that the Mayor will not be using parkland for housing?
So I think the way we talk about parks can sometimes be confusing because the sort of there's no statutory definition in the London Plan process for what a park is. So what we use in the London Plan is public open space. And so those are designated open spaces, and that designation happens at the borough level. And so I think what we really encourage is that boroughs use their local plans to designate those public open spaces as part of protecting them from development.
Well, that's not what the GLA are doing at the moment, is it? The Mayor's asking boroughs to designate bits of parkland as housing.
I don't think I can comment on that.
Well, yeah. Okay. You don't have a comment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Assemblymember Harani.
Thank you, Chair. Just turning to Abby and some of the answers to the questions that you've just given, Abby. So you weren't able to give specific areas where you are able to sort of announce as areas you're looking at in terms of spaces for more regional parks, but are you able to tell us in terms of the type of area that you're looking at? Are you looking at, for example, areas of where you have populations of high density, but also those that are more suffering from inequalities, particularly health inequalities, but also income inequalities as well?
Yeah, so we've got a program. This is in our Greener and More Climate Resilient London delivery plan. It's about investing more in strategic greening and adaptation projects. We refer to it as strategic projects. But and so within that program, we are looking at big transformational strategic investments across a lot of different topics, but in particular to do with inequality, both from a geographic standpoint, but also from a demographic standpoint. And so we have announced a couple of those projects. So we've announced West London Regional Park. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? We announced a big new program on tree equity. So that's not the same as a regional park, but it's quite a strategic project targeting areas with the least tree canopy cover and more need. And we've also announced a strategic project on sustainable drainage systems, so targeting the areas that will have the most downstream benefit from surface water flood risk. So those are some of the projects. So we've got, I think, about 7.5 million in that, and we're planning to fund 5 to 9 projects from that. So we are hoping to announce the rest of those later this year. But we are looking at it from all sorts of perspectives, from equity perspective, from the clean and healthy waterways perspective, from access to green space perspective. Not all of these are regional parks, but they are kind of at the scale of strategic greening in London.
Okay. And just turning to Sam, just in your response to the Chair's question around wayfinding. So you mentioned about sort of the expansion also in the area that you were looking at originally, going further into Hounslow, but just across the other side by Horsenden, you have Brent obviously, which obviously physically is not included, but also if you look at residents that live in that particular area around Alberton, around Hanger Lane, they will be already accessing the space as it is. So are you looking at improvements in terms of wayfinding for residents on the northern part of the area?
Yes, so we've got some funding from Nature Towns and Cities for the Regional Park project, and a large element of that will be going towards creating an identity and a wayfinding plan for the Regional Park. Funding from the Mayor of London is going towards creating a 13-kilometre trail that connects lots of these green spaces together, and a key element of that project will be improving the wayfinding. You can walk through lots of these routes at the moment, but it's very difficult to find your way around, as you've identified. So yes, we will be coming up with a wayfinding strategy and starting to improve the signage along the way.
Okay, and how are you taking into account specific outreach to groups or individuals that are, in terms of the economic background, from lower income families?
So we've just appointed an engagement officer who is dedicated to reaching out and working with local communities. One of the particular issues that's been highlighted to us is difficulty for residents from Southall to get into the regional park. There's particular physical barriers, but also we need to do work with that community to demonstrate how you get into the regional park, what's on offer within the regional park. And we've got some funding to work with a group called Let's Go Southall that works particularly with those communities and to provide access to the regional park.
Okay. And just in terms of if through that engagement work it turns out that there is a specific issue or specific need that they want met, is there scope to adjust or make additions or make changes according to that feedback?
Absolutely, yeah. We're not at the stage yet of doing lots of physical interventions, so we want to work with local communities before we start improving the park on the ground. So we are looking to work with communities on those designs, absolutely.
Great, thanks. Thank you for that.
Thank you. This is a question to our representatives from the Royal Parks and the Lee Valley Park, given that you're the established parks here with some history. What data do you have about who currently visits your park, and what's the mix between local visitors and those who travel from further away?
Yeah, I can pick that one up to start with. I mean, we've got a huge amount of data on our visitors, and we know they come from quite a regional basis as well. Again, going back to the first question, it's interesting that some of our bigger venues, like the sporting venues, the Vela Park, pull people into the regional park as well, and that gives access to the open spaces, the green spaces. So that's a nice mix to link them together. I mean, I've got lots of figures, and we don't want to go on forever, so I can pass some of those on at a later point in terms of the actual numbers we've got. And we've done a little bit of work on the demographics of where they come from. So some of our engagement teams and our active community teams take data on people's locations, where they've come from and why they're coming as well. So we can provide that data at a later point.
That's very good. Thank you. Darren.
And for the Royal Parks, we also carry out a number of surveys and work with the Parks panel to do some more in-depth discussions about users, how they use it. We're the same. We have a mix of some very local users, but also some that are drawn in from a wider region to take more into the aspects that are not available locally. So we've got data on numbers of people that visit the park on a regular basis, and also what they do and what their preferences on in the parks, which we're happy to share.
Yeah, and of course for Hyde in particular, you'll have people coming from all over the country at certain times of the years for Winter Wonderland and the British summertime stuff.
There's a real mix across the whole of the Royal Parks, and it is fair to say that some of the parks has a greater draw from visitors overseas. St James's and Hyde attract massive numbers, around the 19 million visitors, and then you've got Richmond, which is roughly around 6 million visitors a year.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that concludes the first part of the questioning, which was about regional parks. We're now going to go on to a section on governance and sustainability, and Assemblymember Turrell is going to be kicking this off.
Thank you, Chair. But if I may just ask one quick supplementary on the previous
yes, of course.
one, I've just got it wrong. Abby, I'm just looking at the map of where the regional parks are, and there's a bit like the transport map, there's a noticed lack of a regional park in South East London. Are there any plans or conversations ongoing at the moment about delivering a regional park in South East London?
I don't think I can comment on that.
Fair enough. In that case, moving on now to my allotted question, which is coming to Sam. So the plans for the new West London Regional Park is being led by Ealing Council. However, different stakeholders are involved, including the GLA, King Alwyn Rivers Trust, National Trust, the Environment Agency and Hounslow Council. What are the planned governance arrangements for the park?
Yeah, so at the moment we have a partnership with those organisations that you mentioned there. So we've developed a working group and a steering group with representatives from all of those organisations, and we're working very closely with them on all of these plans for the regional park. As part of the work that is funded by the Nature Towns and Cities programme, we have appointed a consultant to advise us on governance and business models going forward. That work has just started. They're looking at best practice from around the country, other regional parks elsewhere. So we're in the very early stages of working out what that governance will look like going forward.
Thank you for that. And when I was out that way last year doing part of the London Loop Walk, one of the things that struck me actually was some of the appalling state that some of the King Owl sections of the walks in there. Can I just clarify if conversations are happening around cleaning up and just making those bits of the King Owl much more welcoming?
Yeah, so Canal and River Trust, as you mentioned, are one of our partners on the partnership. As part of the funding we've got from the Mayor of London, we're dedicating some of that to the river and waterways within the regional park. We also work very closely with volunteer groups, in particular Clean Up the River Brent, who are very active in the river network in Ealing, and very keen to expand that out to the canals going forward.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And the Wandle Valley has a far less formal governance arrangements, including community involvement through a forum. How are you looking to ensure that your plans are also shaped by the local community?
Yes, so about a year ago we set up a community advisory group within Ealing. So we've got representatives from local parks groups, friends groups and other interest groups who are helping us to shape the plans for the regional park. So we're very keen for that to develop as we go forward and potentially play a more formal role in the governance of the regional park as it develops.
Thank you. Assembly Member Mahfouz.
Thank you. Sam, I'd like to start with yourself. Obviously, we've got the fantastic proposals for the West London Regional Park, and three of the targets, the objectives that you talked about at the start were around financial sustainability, celebrating heritage and inspiring local people. And my question is around sustainability. Now, if you look at places like Gunnersbury Park, Walpole Park and so on, there is a mix of obviously free activities for residents to do, but there's also some commercial activities going on within there to try and provide that sustainability. What are you looking to achieve? What measures are you going to be taking within the regional park in order to help achieve that? We've obviously got the amazing Hanwell Zoo right in the middle of it as well. I could go on as a local resident who uses it on a practically daily basis, but I'll hand over to you, Sam.
Thank you. Yeah, there's been all sorts of pressure on park budgets across London in recent years, and as a sector we're having to look at alternative forms of income generation. The regional park is blessed with all sorts of fantastic assets which could potentially be better used. We've got an abandoned stable block just next to the zoo that you mentioned there. We've got a farmhouse up at Horsenden Farm, again currently not used. So we're very keen to look at these assets and work out how they could be better used in the future, as well as the green spaces themselves, to help generate income to make the park financially sustainable.
So you'll be looking to allocate some of this money to support that?
Which money for it?
The 1.5 million.
So we have appointed a business planning consultant who is looking at options for us at the moment. That's being funded from the Nature Towns and Cities programme. They will be producing a report advising on all sorts of options for financial sustainability.
Okay, thanks. And how do you, and perhaps Darren as well, how do you find that you balance these priorities between making sure that you've got, it's not overly commercial and people still feel that it's a space they can come into?
Yeah, I think it's too early to say because we haven't outlined what that looks like, but we need to factor that in when we're considering any income generating opportunities. We need to make sure that that's balanced with access to the green space for local people. We don't want to completely privatise these green spaces and charge for their use. So we need to maintain that balance, absolutely.
I think that's a very valid point. We get a lot of income from our events, but we very clearly define what events and where they are, and set times and set days that we allow. It's so important that people don't feel it's a completely event park, and there's lots of opportunities for free activities, which is key.
And I find quite a lot of the commercial activities, actually some of the ones that you've already referred to, Sam, and so on, like they actually draw more people in to the park as well, don't they? So they add significant value. I'm going to move on to access to green spaces.
Just a moment.
Sorry. The supplementary questions that other people wanted to ask.
Indeed, there are. Assembly Member Boff.
Could I ask, will you be using, in order to get more revenue, will you be selling off any land for housing?
There's no plans for that at this stage, no.
And anyone else? Well, Royal Parks, I'm pretty sure you're not going to. Okay, thank you very much. It's good to have that assurance.
Thank you. Could I just ask a question just on this issue of revenue generation? Because we see quite a lot, any switch on BBC London News on any given day, you'll see there are certain parks where residents are up in arms about a concert happening here or a fair happening there. How do you balance out the needs to generate revenue whilst at the same time keeping local residents satisfied about how you're managing these particular events? Darren, and then Paul.
So I think it's very clear to us that we're very open. We are very open that concerts and major events are a major part of our income generation. It's working very closely with the stakeholders, the local residents all the way around the parks, but also controlling it. So we know that the Hyde Park, for example, it takes the brunt of our event programme, but there are two major events. And we don't then try and have anything in the school holidays when people are needing to use the park locally. So I think it's been very open, very controlled, and not trying to turn it into a continual event space.
Okay. Paul, anything to add?
Yes, I think the honest answer is it's a very difficult balance to strike. Mm-hmm. And I think over the years we've sometimes got it right and sometimes got it wrong. And as Darren says, it's quite right. It's about defining the correct spaces and making sure they're used for your events and other spaces are kept free. And I think we've gone through several iterations of doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing. And we still sometimes, depending on which event we have a need for in a certain place, struggle to do that. So I think the real honesty is a lot of it needs to just be taken as it comes and decisions sort of made on that basis in consultation with the local communities as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on as we just heard access to green space. Assembly Member.
Thank you very much. So just to clarify, Darren, you're not going to be turning the Pelican House at St James's into a multi-storey mansion house or something?
Only for the Pelicans.
Yeah, only for Pelicans. Brilliant. Fantastic. I'm sure they'll be delighted to hear that. So I'm going to move on to Graham and to Abby with the next question. And you've got Natural England's data showing significant disparities at the moment in access to green spaces amongst different communities across London. What actions do you feel should be taken in terms of addressing these inequalities? What place do regional parks have as part of the solution in terms of achieving that?
Yeah, so Natural England has done a survey, our People and Nature survey, for the last 6 years, and that shows some of the disparate differences that you've described. So typically, about 60% of respondents say they'd accessed green space in the last 2 weeks. But that hides some variation in those numbers. So if you earn over £50,000 a year, for example, 77% of people have visited a green space in the last 2 weeks. And if you earn under £15,000, that number drops to around 50%. So there's quite a sort of distinction in earnings about whether you access green space. There's also, we know that if you're from black British communities, you're far less likely to access these spaces than if you're white British. So there are lots of differences in the accessibility to green spaces across London. Natural England's role is really to sort of create the evidence and framework to enable decision makers like the GLA and the boroughs to to decide how best to try and remedy some of those issues. So we have been working with Abby and her team on the London plan to try and make sure that some of this data is incorporated so they can make better decisions about how to make that space available. And we are about to publish, well, we've published a number of different tools over the last few years that sort of show how to measure access to green space. And we've provided standards that sort of indicate that that sweet spot for access is about 3 hectares per 1,000 people. And we know that across London there are significant areas that are well below that, particularly in some of those deprived communities. So again, it's about trying to create the framework for enable others to use that evidence.
Thank you, Graham. Abby, before I come to you, I guess, so what role do you feel that regional parks has in terms of improving accessibility to open spaces across London versus perhaps smaller spaces, smaller parks and so on, but also Graham's point about the tool that they've introduced around accessibility, that are you going to be using that going forward?
Yeah, so in terms of the regional parks' role in addressing accessibility, I think that the thing about regional parks is the much wider catchment area that they have, and actually that, as we were talking about earlier, they're destination parks. So people can be accessing them by driving, by public transit. So there's a much wider pool of people who can access these and can find something that appeals to them across such wide areas, which might not be as easy to do in a local park. There's issues with that, though, because obviously it requires people to be able to have the ability to get to those parks, or even the knowledge and awareness that they exist and that they are for them. And so that is one of the barriers to that. In terms of the Natural England standards, so we have taken a look at that. So that I mentioned some evidence that we published a couple of weeks ago that we were specifically trying to identify whether the London Plan should adopt some of the recommended standards. And part of the findings of that was the standards are for all of England, UK maybe, England, okay. And so it is really, really difficult for urban areas to meet that 3 hectares per 1,000 people. And so what we identified in the evidence is that it wouldn't make sense for London to set a standard as a whole across all of London because of the really different contexts within different parts of London. And so one of the recommendations from that evidence work is that boroughs should set local standards specific to their local, their kind of circumstances locally and their amount and availability of accessible green space. Part of also what we were looking at was how we define and make it easier to identify accessible green space. So what the current London Plan does right now is it sets out different scales of public open space, and then it defines what we call an area of deficiency based on certain distances from those different spaces. It's actually really complex to calculate that, and many boroughs don't do it that well or don't do it that comprehensively. And so one of the things that the evidence work we did was to look at, are there ways to streamline that for the next London Plan?
So what you're saying at the moment is that the Natural England Accessible Green Space Indicator won't be used for the London Plan, and you'll be asking boroughs to introduce their own local indicators. Is that right?
So that's what the evidence found. So what actually ends up getting translated into the London Plan is, it's still to be confirmed, but that's what the evidence was showing, was that it didn't make sense to set that standard as standard across all of London.
Across all of, I mean, at the moment you're saying that there's a differential between London and the rest of England, which is understandable. What you're saying is that there isn't any point in setting a standard across all of London. You're asking local boroughs to set up a local standard in each area, which could have 32, 33 different standards for that.
That's right, but it has to be tailored to the actual availability of accessible green space in the local area, and that's different, and including the opportunity for new green space, that's different in different parts of London.
But this is about trying to set an objective, a target, and if you are doing that at a local level, you can't have that strategic direction set at a London-wide level as to where you're seeking to get to.
Well, I think so the thing is, the Natural England framework still acts as a benchmark for what people can be can be hitting. And the way that the evidence identified how to calculate and simplify the area of deficiency calculations sets out how you can still assess. So the current London Plan still sets out what is best practice for availability of accessible green space. So part of what the evidence does is help us streamline that, so it's actually easier for anybody, whether it's the borough or any of us reviewing boroughs, to actually tell whether they're actually meeting that.
And so if there was a borough, for example, we talk time and time again at planning meetings, housing meetings and so on about the quality of green spaces across London and their accessibility. And so that will obviously be measured in terms of this deficiency score at the moment. But if a borough was to perhaps not be playing ball as to trying to improve accessibility to green spaces, that wasn't their objective, is there a concern that because we're not setting something at a London-wide level or England-wide level that actually, and we're allowing local boroughs to set something that they don't work towards an objective which is to improve accessibility across the board?
So I guess what I'm saying is that there is a standard already, or there's a benchmark already in the current London Plan. So it's just complicated to calculate. So it's all about having reducing areas of deficiency in particular park sizes from particular distances, and so that is already a standard that, or a benchmark that exists in the London Plan. And that is what local plans are measured against when they're reviewed by the GLA. So, that's not necessarily, the evidence is not necessarily changing that, it's trying to improve that.
Okay. And final question to yourself is just in terms of the role that larger parks, such as the regional park that we're talking about today, versus smaller parks or pocket parks have a role to play in terms of improving that accessibility. How do you see that as part of the London Plan?
I don't think there's a specific sort of London Plan element to it, but I think it's sort of, you need to take the opportunities wherever you can get them. And actually, in a lot of London, most of the opportunities are not at regional park scale. But I think sort of in addition to the London Plan, we published our local nature recovery strategy just a couple months ago. And, between that and our aims for kind of connected green space for people, we're looking at how you have connected green space for nature as well. And I think one of the opportunities that we have with regional parks, and that is set out as some of the opportunities within the local nature recovery strategy, is connecting nature as well. And so I think there's a lot of different reasons why you might need extra green space, and whether that's at the local level or the regional level. But one of the big drivers at a regional scale, in addition to that kind of destination park element, is the nature connectivity as well.
Thank you. And my final question overall for this section goes to Sam. So we're talking about accessibility to green spaces. One of the key bits of the puzzle, the jigsaw, in terms of the West London Regional Park, was that right in the middle of the park, if you look at the map, was previously Perivale Golf Course, which had relatively low usage. That has been, obviously it was closed over COVID, and then the decision there to turn that into, democratise it into a park, Pear Tree Park, right in the heart of the new regional park. How have you seen usage change since it was a golf course previously to current usage? Have you got any figures that suggest what the membership was before compared to, and usage compared to usage now as a park that's open to all?
Yeah, it's notoriously difficult to get accurate usage figures for green spaces. So I think what we can go on is anecdotal evidence. I think it does take a bit of time for people to realise that there's a new green space that they can access. But anecdotal evidence suggests that it is increasingly being used by local people. One of the key factors in that was the opening of the cafe, which happened last year. That acts as a hub. There's toilets in there. People can go and get a coffee. And we've noticed real increases in numbers since that cafe opened. And that's facilitated all sorts of other activities and events. We had a big tree planting event in that park, for example. So slowly but surely, we're noticing increasing use of that space.
Yeah, and anecdotally, when I was there at the cafe on a sunny weekend, do you remember one of those? It was absolutely rammed. So, yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you. Assembly Member Boff.
Ms. Chrysostomo, is the Mayor still committed to the aims of the London National Park City?
Yes, absolutely.
And its aims seem to be shared by the regional parks represented here. There seems to be a good deal of agreement between both that national park city. If the Mayor is using the language of the national park city, are some of those aims going to be represented in the new London plan?
Yes, the commitment to improving and increasing green space in London and also addressing climate resilience and all the well-being benefits of green spaces is all committed to in the London plan.
So is the Mayor not going to pursue policies that urbanise those green spaces?
I think that was a double
negative. Is the Mayor going to urbanise green spaces? Probably the better way round.
Well, I think we know that the national policy is to open up Greenbelt to development, and so that is something that is going to be integrated into the new London plan.
Yeah, that's what national policy says, but the Mayor can say something different. He's the Mayor of London, and so he's choosing to do that.
I think in this instance, in the national planning policy framework, we have to follow that. So
he's choosing to do it. He could very well find land elsewhere. Do you think that the aims of the national park city and the acquisition of green belt for housing are consistent?
I think we have to think about the way green infrastructure and green space interacts with new development, and actually the way that development can be made better by making sure that good green space is built as part of new development, and that urban greening is integrated into development itself.
That's great, but it's not really what I'm getting at. It's actually using that green space for housing, which of course is a net loss of green space, and that seems now to be, and that is a choice. That nobody's making us do that. Is that right?
Well, the Mayor has a policy of brownfield first for development, and then there's a grey belt policy where we identify areas of the green belt for development. So there's so I don't think there's a choice of building on green space.
Well, there is a choice. He hasn't explained as yet how brownfield first works. I mean, I don't know how that works. But it isn't the planning committee, so thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. We're going to move over to a new topic now, which is the use of green space, and our first question from Assembly Member McCartney.
Thank you and welcome everyone. My question is for Lee Valley Royal Parks and West London, if I can, and it's about barriers that people may have in accessing your parks. Have you done any work to understand what those barriers are and how have you mitigated them? Perhaps I could start with Paul.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's a number of things. Yes, we have done some work and there's a number of things we can do. I think one example, which is quite a nice one, is we've changed how we structure some of our bird hides around the regional park. So, for example, a lot of our old ones were built initially for the let's say the gentleman in camouflage jackets with long telephoto lenses, and it didn't make it very welcoming for families, children, other people. So one of the things we've done is we've changed one of those hides into what we've called our Wildlife Discovery Centre. So we sort of swapped it around, put a hide on the side, but a different information point on one bit. We've put a tower in the middle so people can go up and look over the lake as well. And we've put a lot of children interactive activities in the information bit, and we've manned it with volunteers. So volunteers run it now on a daily basis. I was in fact there this morning with 3 volunteers, and they're showing people the wildlife and the birds, and it goes back to that access to nature again as well. It's really opened up to different communities, different people, different abilities, and even the fishermen that are there for fishing come in and are interested in looking at some of the birds now as well. So that's been a real learning point for us in just thinking, I hate to use the phrase, but out of the box a little bit more, and not using your standard sort of application for a particular activity.
Thank you. I mean, I represent Enfield and Haringey, and I have been in many of those bird hides before. But one thing that keeps surprising me is that commuters, for example, on the east of those boroughs, who may only be a few hundred yards away from the parks, still really don't know that it's there. or how they can easily access it. Have you done anything about, I suppose, that information and welcoming as well?
Yeah, there's a lot of work we're doing at the moment, particularly with some Section 106 money to try and particularly the wayfinding, getting people in and giving them, because again, we have a small issue with the railway and the river, as I'm sure you know, being a bit of a barrier. So we've worked quite hard to fix a load of those problems. But we have a number of other programmes that are run by our learning engagement team and our active communities team, getting involved with particular communities and bringing them in with events and activities, some linked in various different ways, either through health and wellbeing, through doctor referrals, and others just through general activity and events. We find we concentrate in particular areas and try and work that through, and it's a resource issue with rolling that model out as widely as possible. But the model's there.
Thank you. Darren, do you want to say anything about how the Royal Parks engages?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think the first thing is that we carry out a number of surveys. So we are working very closely with our Parks panel to find out what they perceive as a barrier, and then we can try to amend or do something different. But I think it opens that conversation, so it makes us really open. But we've also got a learning and engagement and access team that will then take events into the community and hold those events as well back into the local parks. So it's a mixture of a bit of both, listening to what people want, but also going working with communities and trying to get them back into the parks with an active campaign of activities that happens across all of our parks.
Okay, thank you. I think, Sam, you've already touched on this, but is there anything more you're doing to get communities engaged?
Yeah, I think we've got those physical barriers that I mentioned earlier. We've got roads that dissect parks. We've had flooding issues, so we're looking to design those out. We've got locks that are a barrier to access, particularly Warren Farm down in the south of Ealing. But when we've spoken to local people, there are other less obvious barriers, such as a lack of toilets, for example, particularly for older people. Benches are a particular issue for older people. So sometimes it's these simple things that can make it a lot easier for particular groups of people to use those green spaces. Safety comes up a lot when we speak to local people. I think quite often the way to make a park feel safer is for it to be better used, more full of people. And that's, like Darren was mentioning there, that goes back to volunteering activities, events within the park that make people feel safer going to those green spaces.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. And then, Graham, if I can come to you, because I think Natural England have done some work about what are the barriers, but is there anything that's particularly London-specific that might differ from the rest of the country at all, or is it quite similar?
It's quite similar. It tends to be the same sorts of things that others have raised. You know, it's roads that are difficult to cross, railway lines. In Natural England, we're working on the government's aspiration for a Green in 15 campaign to try and make green spaces accessible in 15 minutes, walk from people's homes. And if you've got busy roads that are difficult to cross, or railway lines where there are not many crossing points, then that becomes quite difficult to challenge. And we find that people won't really walk beyond 15 minutes walk to get to a green space, is what our evidence shows us, or cycle in that time, and recognising that lots of Londoners don't have access to a car as well. So there's a sort of challenge about how do we open up those pinch points, find ways to open up access so that we can make it easy to get to these places, and then it becomes the logical choice for people to go there to spend their spare time.
Thank you. Now, Sam talked earlier about engaging with communities on the development of the new regional park and I suppose how they can help co-design what's in there. Can I ask perhaps the others, Paul and Darren, how you engage the public into improvements in the parks, and particularly how you engage volunteers and getting people to come in, whether it's for mental health, whether it's for skills or volunteering. How do you go about that, and is there any best practice you can point to? Perhaps, Darren, I'll start with you.
Okay. Yeah, so we're heavily used to working with and really enjoy working with volunteers. They add so much, both in a welcoming campaign, but also in the physical ability of delivering some of the activities. So, for example, the last garden that we just reopened at Regent's Park in memory of the late Queen, we We had people that were involved in the design from the local communities as well as surrounding areas, but we also had a significant number of volunteers that actually came in and carried out a lot of the planting. So when we opened the garden, they were involved in the opening and they were invited as part of that. But actually, they felt ownership of the garden straight away because they'd been involved in that build and that design. So it's really important that you get people feeling part of that event and that park, part of the park. We do that with all of our major flagship projects. We're very lucky that each one of our royal parks has got a very strong friends group that not only donate money, but they donate time and their ideas for what the park should look like. And it's really important that we work with those teams and that friends group to make sure that they understand that we are listening and we want to be part of that, making their vision come true in the parks.
Okay, thank you. Paul?
Yeah, very similar things. I think one of the other things we do a lot is work really keenly with volunteers and volunteer groups. So although we have a volunteer programme with our own volunteers, we have a lot of community groups, particularly litter picking activities, a whole range of friends of groups, and they also get involved to our Volunteer of the Year party each year as well, and that's a really good way of engaging with them, getting them involved in what we're doing, understanding as much as they can about what we're trying to achieve and how they can help us and how we can deliver what they would like as well.
Thank you. Can I ask, do any of you work with local colleges about green skills?
Yeah, so we do. We offer opportunities for people to get taster sessions and come straight from school into work, but we also work with Capel Manor to offer placements for their students in our parks as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, exactly the same, Capel Manor as well and several other places.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Assembly Member Harani, were you hoping to come in next? Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Just a question, first of all, to Graham, but others feel free to come in as well if you have anything to add. And it's on green social prescribing. So how is green social prescribing and the green social prescribing approach being supported in London?
I can talk more generally about the national picture, but rather than specifically for London. But we've done quite a lot of research as part of Natural England's investigation into this area to show the benefits of green social prescribing. We have done some research over the last few years, and of the 8,500 people that we referred for green social prescribing, the majority found that they had made a significant improvement to their mental health and physical health by being prescribed access and time in nature. And when we costed up the benefits of green social prescribing, we found that for every £1 that was spent, £2.42 in benefits were received. So I think it's a small start, but I think it shows the benefits that green social prescribing can do. And what we're trying to do in Natural England now is to share that evidence base and help others, and particularly work with the NHS commissioning boards to start scaling up some of these benefits so that we can see how access to green space and access to nature can improve people's lives.
Okay, and just let's just take a step back a bit. So what does that involve?
So that involves working with GPs to help them to show, to help GPs understand the sort of range of other non-traditional medicinal approaches to resolving some of those people's long-standing health and mental health issues. So by recommending or prescribing walks with community groups in green spaces, then that provides an alternative approach alongside traditional medicine where people are spending more time outside, getting fresh air, spending time in their communities with like-minded individuals, and we've found from our research that generates significant benefits to those individuals.
Great. And Abby, do you have anything to add from a London?
I was just going to say, I have a couple of examples of things that are happening in London. So one of the things that exists is the London Social Prescribing Network, which is part of the London Communities Emergency Partnership, which my colleagues in the Resilience team support. So that's part funded by the Mayor. In the past, we've also worked with boroughs like Camden and Islington on the Parks for Health program, which looked deep dive into how to make social prescribing work even better and linking it to green spaces in Camden. And then it was 3 or 4 years ago, the Mayor funded some research with the Mental Health Foundation about London-specific barriers to social prescribing. And I think the specific challenges that report identified were transport accessibility and a lack of funding sustainability for the voluntary community and social enterprise groups, providers that were using it, and then also a need to improve the diversity and inclusivity of those. So I think, there's been times when people have thought that social prescribing might be a good way to fund green spaces, but actually I think some of the experience we've found in working with partners in this space that actually the NHS doesn't have much more money either, so it's not a huge opportunity for funding group space, but it's still a really good thing to promote, and it's a really good way to connect people to the resources that are just sort of outside the windows.
Right, and that social prescribing network in London, so who's part of that network?
So it's a lot of different providers of places where people can get the mental health benefits. So it's not just green space providers, it's other types of providers as well.
Okay, and it includes the NHS and charities?
So. I believe so. It's not run through my team, so I don't know loads of details, but we can send more.
Okay, and how can sort of work in this area be increased or expanded going forward?
I think similar to what Graham said, I think it is actually about making those connections. I think the idea of social prescribing is much more known now than it was 10, 15 years ago. And there's a news story just last week, I think, about a hospital that's integrated a rooftop green space to their critical care patients, and critical patients can still be sort of plugged into the things they need to be plugged into, but can be in a green rooftop. And so I think, a lot of the different NHS trusts and hospitals and care facilities are already integrating and thinking about this as part of their day-to-day management. And so I think the wider activity is how do you make sure that the connections are made with local green space providers as well.
Okay, and does anyone else have anything to add on social prescribing?
Yeah, I mean, we have an active communities team and staff that work with volunteers working specifically on that subject, using walking groups, cycling groups and other activities in the park. And I've got some figures I'll pass on later to have a look at the numbers of people we put through.
Yeah, sorry, Paul, you've come to my attention there because obviously you've got the leisure facilities as well. So do you integrate that into the
Absolutely,
green
yeah.
space?
Our staff run a very broad range of programmes, and a lot of them do start from the facilities, so either the White Water Centre or the Velo Park, and again with the CAF and toilets. It's actually a really nice mix, and we're very fortunate to have that resource available to us, and it really makes that easy to operate and run. But again, the staff and the volunteers are a key part of it, actually making that happen, because the staff link with the GPs and making sure everything fits together.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Assembly Member Cooper next.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start with Darren, and then I'm going to see who else would like to come in. But what do you consider to be the key facilities that a regional park needs to be welcoming to everybody? Just pull out a few of your favourites.
Just a few. I think welcoming, I think it needs to be very clear that it is a place to come to. I think toilets are a vital part of that facility to make sure that it's not just a very small time you can spend in the park. And so toilets and the ability to have a drink or something to eat as well, I think, if you're not taking a picnic. I think children's play and some sort of informal stroke formal activity for children is also vital. But it's a wide range. I think it's hard to just list everything, because if you list everything, you want everything should be included, and actually, sometimes the ability to have that walk in a park with nobody else is just as equally as important as having a load of facilities that are open to everybody.
So wide open spaces with nobody else around might be a key feature as well.
I think parks can do so many things, and I think there is something about isolation and isolation with your friends, so you're not on top of everybody else. In there is equally important than going somewhere where there's full of people. So I think the beautiful thing about parks is that they can be anything to everybody, and that's what we can't design out. We've got some brilliant landscapes, we've got some brilliant parks. And what we don't want to be doing is filling them with formal structures and formal activity places where you can get that elsewhere. So I think we've got to remember that they are an environment and they're a park first and then activity centre second.
Yes, I often make these points. My local open spaces are common, designated as such, and lots of people say, oh, why isn't there more lighting? And I have a lot to say about that because I consider it to be a common. Graham, can I ask you to comment on this from the Natural England perspective? What do you consider to be the key facilities in a regional park? And of course, we are talking about something a bit larger here, so it could be anything.
Well, I largely agree with what Darren says. I think in Natural England we talk about a loo, a brew and a view as being as the sort of key things that people are looking for from when they go to a park. But I think more broadly, what we're looking for is a regional sort of scale approach where there's room for nature, there's room for people, there's room for people to experience nature, and there's anything we can do to sort of be green and blue spaces. I think shows that gives extra benefit to people's health and well-being. It's that mix of green and blue spaces I think is really important, and that's good for the environment, it's good for nature, it's good for climate resilience. So if we could try and get some new ponds, improving our waterways, I think that seems to really connect with people as well.
That's great. I'm going to ask Sam next. You can speak with obvious local specific reference to the West London Regional Park if you wish, and then I'll come to you and we can talk about whether every park should have a whitewater rafting centre. I'm assuming we don't think that every park should have that, but the Lee Valley Park definitely does. Sam?
Yeah, I think the obvious benefit of working at a regional scale is the size, and when you've got that size you have variety of different habitats, different green spaces. You can have sports facilities, skate parks. In Ealing we've got Horsenden Hill, that's sort of the view, the forested area. I have to mention the beavers in Ealing, of course.
You haven't mentioned them. I'm very surprised that Assemblymember Mafus and McCartney haven't got in first, frankly. There's normally a competition between the two of them to see who can mention the Ealing beavers and the Enfield beavers first. Apparently they were first in Ealing. Who knew? No, they weren't. They were first in... OK, let's not go down the beaver road because it gets very competitive. Yes, yes. Assemblymember Hirani's only here to separate them. No, for many other reasons as well. Sorry, Sam.
So it's that variety, and then the ability to move between those different types of green space, I think, is of real value to local people.
And last but not least, Paul, and I know the Lee Valley because I went to school in Broxbourne, so I know the facilities very well in the Lee Valley, and obviously I now live in the Wandle Valley, so I know that one. I know the other part somewhat less. But, in your view, what are the key things?
Yeah, I don't think there is a key facility. I think, as Sam's alluded to as well, it's the diversity and it's enabling that multi-use. I think a lot of our sites as well, and I'm proud to sit here and say it, we do manage to make it multi-use. We have fishermen alongside cyclists, alongside dog walkers, alongside bird watchers, and there's a space for everybody. And as Sam says, that the size helps as well. Smaller pocket parks or different types of parks don't have that availability, whereas a regional park does. Yes, it's great if you can throw in a whitewater centre, a velodrome, or something like that, a big event. And again, the ice centre. I think if any of you have visited the ice centre that we've just recently built on the Lea Bridge Road, that's got a really nice load of features in it for nature and conservation. The outside work has been done very well. The environmental work with solar panels, we've made it as efficient as possible. And that's on a road where just down the road we've got our nature reserve as well, the Waterworks Nature Reserve. So it's having all of those things available. Yes, the loos and the CAF are important as well, but I think that's the key, is that diversity.
Thank you. Some really good answers there, and drawing out. And I like the loo and the brew. I think that's obviously. I think most people would want that pretty much available somewhere in the regional park. Can I come back to? Oh, sorry, Abby. Did you want to come in as well? No.
I've got Assembly Member Boff wishes to come in at question 9. So.
Sorry, I thought he wanted to come in a bit later.
Yeah, both.
Sorry, did you want to come in now?
You've piqued his interest on something here, and he's going to come in later as well, I believe.
Okay.
I love it when people talk about toilets, and the older I get, the more I love it when people talk about the provision of toilets in parks especially. Does the EHRC guidance with regard to single-sex spaces present a challenge for any of you?
No, we've found a way that we can enable toilets to be accessible for everybody.
That's interesting. How have you accommodated the opinions put in the EHRC guidance?
So we've lucky enough to have some male toilets, female toilets, but also single units, and we've also got mixed toilets. So we've got quite a range, and including changing places toilets in the parks.
And is that in all your parks? All the options in all the places?
We haven't got changing places in all the parks.
Changing places. I'm pleased to hear you have changing places as well.
We've got some, but we haven't, not enough. We plan to do more.
Okay. And what about the other parks as well?
Yeah, I think as is quite variable, and it's not my field, so I can't really answer that question, unfortunately.
And the West London parks?
It's not something I can comment on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. Assembly Member Cooper.
Thank you, Andrew. So we were talking about what you've got in the parks, the kind of things that are essential to have in them. What about getting there? Do you all provide, I'm thinking about maps to help people access the parks. If I'm coming to City Hall, I'd probably give people directions for how they could get here via the DLR, the cable car, the underground, buses, and so on and so forth. Obviously, it's really important to get people out and about. Are you providing a full set of information so that people can understand how to access the facilities? And I'm going to go down the row in the same order again. Darren, did you obviously the Royal Parks are all over the place.
Yeah, but they are very contained. So we do have site maps, so individual site maps, which are available on the website. On there, it's got access for where the car parks are, and some parks don't have car parks, St James's, for example. But also tube station and local train stations, and in the case of Richmond Park, we also do a community bus that we take people into. So we try to, wherever we can, tell people how we can get there and make the parks as easy and open as possible. We are currently reviewing our signage at the moment to make sure it's as clear and as accessible as we physically can. So we're going through that process again. But yes, our website is our protocol.
That's great. And Sam, I presume that you're developing all of this for the new West London Regional Park, and that's going to be a priority to make sure people understand all the different ways they can get to the park?
Exactly, yeah. It will be part of the wayfinding strategy that I mentioned earlier. But I think what we're also keen to do is use the design of the park itself to make it easy for people to understand how to move around it, but also get to it and from it. So that might be the way that we design the trail, the materials that we use, the furniture that we use, without relying on hundreds of signs all over the place.
And the same, obviously, for the Lee Valley. And like the West London Regional Park, obviously the Lee Valley is sort of linear, so presumably encouraging people to access different places, also encouraging people to go through it.
Yeah. I mean, again, the same as the Royal Parks, we use the website a lot. I mean, one of the things we have done is driven it from quite an environmental perspective. So a lot of our information is about public transport rather than driving, and about sustainable access. So that's the headline in how we get to sites. We do provide maps at various scales, from the whole park down to just the Riverlea Country Sanctuary Park as one map, and then specific site maps for some places as well. Still a fair bit of leafleting, although we go around the cycle of moving away from leaflets and then back to them again. So we've gone around that cycle a few times. But yeah, very similar information. And again, a lot of the, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the work we're doing with other local boroughs, user groups, etc., for just wayfinding, directional finding, and linking people in and through the park. And the Crossway one's an interesting one because we've got a very current project around Banbury Reservoir at the moment, and just trying to link people through with the new development at Meridian Water, and make sure that people are aware of how to get to our park, other parks in Enfield, etc., and through and around.
I mean, obviously, that's a really important point for the new park. When people are coming into the West London Regional Park, are we going to be encouraging people to come through areas that are full of nature so that they can experience that side of the park rather than always coming through on a route that's paths or roads? Is that something we're going to be able to organise?
Wherever possible, we would like to do that, yeah. I mentioned earlier the green fingers. So this is about not just having that one trail down the centre, but really thinking about those connections into local communities. And we want those connections to be as welcoming as possible, because we found out that's one of the barriers at the moment to access. People don't always realise they're allowed into particular green spaces. So we need to use the design to draw people in and make them feel comfortable using those green spaces.
Yes, and I think also encouraging people in when it's in a slightly wilder state. I mean, as well as people saying on Tooting Common we need more lights. Some people not enjoying no mow May because they think that all the grass should be cut, which doesn't happen anymore, or converting it all into football pitches rather than having parts of the common that are actually acid grassland, which we have. So I think it's getting people to enjoy nature as nature rather than nature with secateurs to hand, as it were. So is that something that you're going to be? I mean, it's something obviously that Natural England is very keen on as well. But is that going to be part of the focus? Yeah, I mean, a big part of the project is creating new habitats, creating wild spaces. And I think what you want to do quite often is just mow strips around the edge to show that you are maintaining it. That signals that it's being looked after. It's not just being forgotten about. And you can still retain the majority of it as wild habitat, absolutely. Sorry, Paul, did you want to come back in on something there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think one of the key things is partnerships, and certainly the Banbury project we're looking at the moment, the key will be the partnership with Thames Water, and there's potentially a nice green corridor we could use through there if they would adapt part of their land. So if you can get into those partnerships and make them work, that's a really beneficial way of getting those things to happen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's very helpful.
Thank you. Assembly Member Boff, are you wishing to come back in?
Yes, curiously enough, on a completely different question. It's just a tangent, really. Mr. Roper, I was just wondering, Lee Valley has got an incredible industrial heritage. How is that being celebrated in terms of the Lee Valley Heritage Trust, and what are your relationships with them?
Yeah, a range of different ways, particularly through Enfield Lock, and we would work with a number of people that have written books and information on the heritage of the site, right down through to the Thames, where one of our projects on East Inverloch Basin at the moment is reviving the heritage there. So anywhere we can actually put that into place, yes, absolutely. We're working in a number of streams.
And I recognise that funding is always an issue. But will we be preserving the West Ham pumping station for future reference?
Well, that's not part of our remit or land holding, unfortunately. But yeah, right. we would certainly support that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move into a section now regarding nature recovery, and our next question is from Assembly Member Polanski.
Thank you. Yes, I want to pick up on Assembly Member Cooper's no mow May and putting the secateurs away. So, Graham, we now have a London nature recovery strategy. Just want to ask, what funding is there for the implementation of the LNRS priorities, such as for areas identified as potentially important for nature?
Yes, thank you. So DEFRA have recently confirmed that there will be funding for the next few years to enable the GLA to deliver, to start turning the NRS strategy into delivery actions on the ground. So I think Abby and the team are just starting to think about how that's going to happen and identify what the list of priorities are based around the NRS. But the funding for the next few years is a really important marker to show that government can deliver on its commitments around the Environment Act.
Thank you very much. And Abby, how has the Mayor's Clean and Healthy Waterways Plan informed the priorities for the West London Regional Park?
So part of the Clean and Healthy Waterways Plan, we have identified 4 key themes that the plan's structured around. So that's water quality, access, nature, and then inclusion and engagement. And so that has driven the actions that are going to be set out in the plan. And it's also informed how we've identified up to 10 strategic locations where there'll be kind of a focus of effort in delivery.
And I know we've had this conversation before, but when do you expect the plan to be published?
Believe me, I would really like it to get out there too. We're aiming for summer.
Okay. And Paul, if I can come to you, how have you been involved in the Clean and Healthy Waterways Plan?
Yeah, we were on a couple of the panels, so the park were invited to sit on the access one, and again we input into that, and yeah, we've supported all the way through.
Thank you very much. And Darren, same question.
Yeah, we've had people involved in the nature recovery strategy as well. It's been a very important part of what we do is all about biodiversity, and it's been great to get involved in the wider need for habitat improvement.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Assembly Member Mahfouz, you wish to come in?
Thank you. So, yeah, we've mentioned it a little bit earlier, but of course there is a magic ingredient in terms of dealing with the challenges of flooding, but also in terms of improving our local habitat, and we have that right in Paradise Fields in Greenford. Of course, with the beavers that were introduced there, and anybody who've watched the David Attenborough documentary that aired on New Year's Day, or has watched Beavers in Paradise, which don't Google that. But it was another documentary that somebody did about
the Family Committee.
Will know the impact that they've made in Greenford already, which used to get flooded, but now no longer is flooded thanks to the work the beavers have done there. We saw, obviously, just this last week, right? So last week was absolutely stunning, gorgeous heat wave, unfortunately, that we had across London. But this week, we have now got flooding right in the middle of the regional park in Hanwell, between the viaduct and the hospital. How important is the development of the regional park in terms of dealing with flood defences and the flood issues that we're facing as part of the climate crisis that we're going through right now?
Yeah, it's very important, and you'll know from living locally, but it's something that we experience almost every winter. And one of the issues that it has is it reduces people's impact to green spaces. When those places are flooded, it makes it a lot harder for people to enjoy them as recreational spaces. So we're very keen to design in spaces that can hold that flood water. So we've recently received some funding from DEFRA, specifically for Pear Tree Park, the old golf course. And we're in the process of designing in wetland habitats which can hold that floodwater, takes it away from those pathways, keeps the pathways accessible, but also provides habitat for wildlife at the same time. So it's having multiple benefits. And we're very keen to look for other opportunities throughout the regional park to create those new wetland habitats that reduce the impact of flooding on local people.
Yeah, incredibly welcome. And I know the Green Roots Fund, Abby, just had another round of funding, and again, very much linked to this about green and blue spaces and making sure that, we've got this climate resilience as part of the development there. How important is how you're using the Green Roots Fund alongside the funding, for example, for the regional parks in order to achieve these objectives?
Incredibly important, I think, for both the Green Roots Fund and for the sort of strategic project funding that we give. Climate resilience and adapting to climate change is one of the key things that we are looking to fund. But that's also in addition to some of the health and well-being stuff we've talked about, and also delivery of nature recovery and the local nature recovery strategy. So, we're trying to do a lot of things with the funding that we do have in the Green Roots Fund.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go on to a subject of funding now. Assembly Member Cooper.
So we've just had a quick reference to the Green Roots funding, but obviously we've had a bigger package of £1.5 million, as I understand it, for the West London Regional Park, which was announced in March. Where exactly is this funding coming from, and what exactly will it support? And I'm obviously picking on Sam for the answer to this question.
Yes, we're very grateful for that funding. I've mentioned quite a bit today the trail. That is the first key element of this project. So that funding will help us to deliver improvements to that trail, which will improve accessibility to the regional park for local people. And along that trail, we want to focus in on certain nodes. We mentioned earlier this idea of improving access from local communities, so identifying those key entrance points into the regional park that will welcome people in. And we've also talked a bit today about wayfinding as well. So quite a bit of that money will be going towards improving wayfinding. And I mentioned that might not just be signs, that might be in the form of public art or the design of the trail itself, because we want people to understand when they're in the regional park and easily find their way throughout the regional park.
Yeah, I can actually strongly commend the work that Thames Tideway Tunnel have done in terms of incorporating new public art to create a sense of wayfinding along the River Thames. They've actually got a poem, and you have to visit every single one of the sites, so probably most people will never read the entire poem, but they commissioned a poem and pieces of art, and they are present all the way along, and I think it really works to have more of a sense. Obviously, they're quite spread apart. Do you know if there are other opportunities for other regional parks in London to access the same kind of support?
That particular funding question probably is best directed at Abby over there. I would hope so.
Abby, do you know the answer to that question? And where exactly has the money come from? Is it from TfL or GLA?
So there's different bits of funding, I think. So the 1.5 million for West London Regional Park comes from the strategic projects project line that I mentioned earlier in our delivery plan. So I think I said 7.5 earlier. It's 7.9 million in that fund or in that program for 5 to 9 projects. And so, as I said, we've announced 3 of those so far, but we have more to announce later this year. And then obviously Green Roots Fund is open for anybody. It's got a cap at 500k, and it's very competitive at that high end of the range. So, you know, when you're talking about regional parks, that's kind of nothing for some of the sort of investments that they need. So it's not necessarily the place to go for a big investment, but we are investing in other places as well through the strategic projects work. And then TfL is also investing in, as part of their commitments to the Clean and Healthy Waterways Plan, they've committed 1.5 million for access improvements between waterways and TfL network. I think Alex is on the next panel, so.
Okay, so there's a lot of different sources of the funding. The funding's coming in a couple of tranches, I believe, to Ealing. It's not all coming as one large cheque. Do you know when the money is coming and exactly what you'll be using it for? You ran through a sort of menu of improving accessibility and wayfinding and art. Do you know, is that nailed down yet, or does that need to go through internal decision making?
I think we're waiting for the final sign-off. I think we're very close to that. I'm looking at Abby there.
Yes, we've got a grant agreement that we're going through the internal sign-off stuff, which I think actually has happened. So, but we're just finalising it. But it's standard practice not to give all of the funding up front.
Sure. So there's going to be more than one tranche of money coming through. So some will come through nearer the beginning.
It's over 2 years, so around 700,000 this year, around 600,000 next year. Yes. In addition to the list that I mentioned earlier, we're also spending money on improving the river. We're working with Thames 21 on the River Brent. There are lots of habitat and ecology improvements along that stretch, working closely with Ealing Wildlife Group and with Citizen Zoo as well, hopefully eventually to release water voles back into the river.
I mean, I'm really pleased to hear that some of the money is going to come this year, and it's going to be used to try and encourage more wildlife diversity, because obviously there has been a period from 2010 to 2024 when funding was particularly difficult to get hold of with it, and there have been cuts to local authority finance over that period of time. What would you like to see, Graham, from the Natural England perspective in terms of further support either from City Hall or indeed from government towards what we can do to really, really encourage biodiversity and nature to improve? Because we're a very nature-depleted country, aren't we?
we're one of the most nature-depleted countries on the planet. So if we think that's not right and we want to change that, then we need to find ways to be more effective. I think the panel have sort of touched on this. I think part of this is about working more collaboratively. So where we've got shared interest in delivering for climate resilience, nature recovery, making our communities more secure, enabling good growth that delivers for the economy and for the natural environment is really important. So by bringing that all together, I think we can deliver more for our regional parks and our green spaces across the capital.
And also provides a habitat where we've tackled the urban heat islands, some of the sustainable drainage issues, because obviously we live in and around and amongst the regional parks in this city called London. Thank you. That's really helpful. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I've got Assemblymember Boff coming in, then I have a question, then I bring in Assemblymember Tara.
How should we ensure that the parks are protected to the future? You know, in the past we used to talk about Greenbelt, we used to talk about Metropolitan Urban Land. All of those designations are now being attacked by either the government or the Mayor of London or boroughs themselves. How do we protect these parks, this wonderful asset that London has for the future? Does it need an additional designation, something that's harder than Greenbelt or Metropolitan Open Land? Natural England is the natural place to go to.
Okay, thank you for the question. So I'm not sure another designation or order of some sort would add the protection, because a lot of as in the way you've described, these places have already got designations sitting on them. So I'm not sure that that's the way to go. I think it comes back to what we've talked about over several times on this panel, is that if we make parks important places for communities that people use and treasure and love, then that is the best way to look after and preserve these places, because people don't like losing things that are close to them. How decision makers like local authorities and the GLA balance the policy needs against those desires of communities to look after their spaces is a really difficult one, and it's a challenge that is not for me to make. But I think by investing in these places so that they are whatever communities want them to be, whatever communities need them to be, is a way of ensuring we get that protection. And if we can do so in a way that improves it for nature as well, I think that's a really good thing to do.
Thank you for that. I'd like to have confidence in that, but when the local authority itself in Enfield proposed building on Cruise Hill Trent Park and has only been saved by a curious coalition of Conservatives and Greens opposing it, when they themselves proposed it, a valuable local asset, one wonders how we can have any kind of designation that will save us from these vandals.
Well, I don't intrinsically believe that building is inherently bad for nature. It depends on what you're building on and how you build forward. So there are lots of places that you could build new communities and developments. If it's on previously very intensively used agricultural land, then often that has very little environmental value. It's important for food provision, but it might not have much in the way of access provision. So if you're building new homes on places like that, then you can, I think, leave a better situation for both nature and for people and communities. It's about what I said here about making sure that that growth delivers for all of those who need it to deliver in that place, and that includes building new homes. It needs people who rely on nature about providing access. So and Natural England, we're working on both the new development and Cruise Hill, but also the landscape recovery scheme that is happening just next door that the government are looking to fund through their environmental land management scheme. And for me, it's a very exciting opportunity of how we invest significant amounts of money into nature whilst delivering thousands of much needed homes for local communities as well. And I don't intrinsically believe that the two clash, but if we don't work together, they will clash. But I think there are opportunities to deliver good outcomes for both, and that's what naturally we want to achieve.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Quick question for Abby. My ears sort of pricked up when you mentioned the Green Routes Fund up to £500,000. Although hotly contested, lots of people going for it. What sort of projects does that support, and who can apply? And I declare an interest as a leader of a cash-strapped local council, I suppose, at this point.
So what we've done is we've consolidated all the grant programs that we've historically had. So the Green Routes Fund funds a really wide range of things. So anything that improves green and blue spaces in London in a really wide remit. But with a focus on aiming to address a specific need. So whether that's well-being, or whether that's flood risk or heat or nature recovery, but also with an emphasis on addressing equity concerns and making sure that there is that equity is addressed and access deficiencies are addressed. That's supported by the evidence that we've published in March with the Green Infrastructure Framework and the Nature Recovery Strategy. But so the funding ranges from 10,000 to 500,000, and we've been funding boroughs, local community groups, NGOs. I think we've just done some analysis of some of the groups that we funded, and actually in our second round we funded quite a lot of kind of local interest groups or local groups that aren't necessarily nature or green infrastructure led. They're sort of there's a dad's club, there's a sustainable Muslim community. So like different groups, it's not just the kind of boroughs or ENGOs that often get funded. But we just closed the third round of funding last week, but the fourth round of funding opens again in a couple of weeks, and that has a deadline in January.
Excellent.
So there's plenty of time for you to get an application in.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. OK, Assembly Member Turrell is next.
Thank you, Chair. Abby, just quickly on funding, and particularly for councils. Obviously, last year we had the government's rather misleadingly named Fair Funding 2.0, which is actually makes significant cuts to the funding that our councils here in London are going to be receiving. In order to balance the books, it probably means it's going to be mostly with 70% of council funding often being taken up by statutory services. It's the non-statutory services like the environment budgets that will therefore bear the weight of council. Has the GLA made representation to the government to revisit the funding of local government?
This is like one of the most key issues. It's probably the number one thing that we talk about with local councils all the time, and it's not just the recent funding settlement. It's been declining for this sector for a long time, and so I think all London local councils are really feeling the pinch. Some of the stuff that we're doing is trying to is a concentrated program of work to try to identify new funding sources for the green space sector. So whether that's additional funding for the Green Routes Fund that we can distribute through grants, or whether it's trying to identify funding sources for local councils, that could include talking to government, but it could also include identifying kind of private investment opportunities, whether that's green finance or sort of philanthropic or ESG kind of commitments. But that's one of the, and it's not just for the installation or creation of green spaces. It's really the long-term management and maintenance of green spaces that's really under pressure here. So I think it's a really, really tricky issue, and it's one that we are trying to dig even deeper into to help local councils.
Excellent. Thank you for that. It's a really useful answer. Graham, coming on to your good self, which is what is your involvement in the Nature Towns and Cities programme, and how is this funding being prioritised?
Yes, thank you. Nature England worked with the National Lottery Heritage Fund and the National Trust to establish the Nature Towns and Cities programme. We have, as part of that group, distributed £15 million to Ealing and others across the country to work up their plans to increase nature in people's lives. Nature England, we worked to develop the accreditation process, which enabled authorities across the country to apply to be part of the status. It was a competitive bid, but we co-designed it with local authorities to make sure that we were clear on what folks wanted to do and how we'd measured their applications, and then we sat on the panel to make sure that those places that put in the strongest application got the most amount of funding, as we've heard already. But even those who weren't successful got support from Nature England, and will continue to do so to help find ways to put more nature into people's lives.
Assembly Member Mahfouz.
Thank you. Sorry, just to clarify, Abby, who was the government responsible for removing two-thirds of local government funding over the last previous 14 years from 2010
Are we
to
lapsing into a
2024?
vulgar political point?
No, just that the fair funding formula is about fair funding, and actually I represent two.
As I asked
sorry,
the question,
just to clarify,
that it's 1998 that these issues were going. I wonder who in government.
My hand is reaching for the gavel.
My point is that actually it's about fair funding, and boroughs that I represent across Ealing and Hillingdon are both massively benefiting from the additional funding that we'll be receiving, because it is about redistributing the funding to making sure that boroughs that have missed out for a number of years get the funding. So, whereas previously every single borough was missing out massively year after year.
Thank you. Apologies. Are there any other questions which we wish to raise with the panel whilst we have them here? Yeah. Are there any points which you wish to have been asked about that you've been burning to get off your chest? Anybody? We have a couple of minutes to spare. Yes.
I would just say we haven't really talked about this too much yet, but one of the other bits of work research that Nature England has done is looked at the sort of economic value of green spaces across England, and this isn't just about an environmental issue; it's a health and economic issue as well. And our research, working with the Treasury, indicates that there are about £25 billion worth of economic value come from our green spaces across the country every year. A huge amount of value, and I think it comes back to what I was saying previously. Funding is tight for lots of organisations, but it's just about being smarter about how we recognise the economic value that these green spaces bring. We pull in a bigger collaboration between people who've got an interest, so whether it's National Rail or other infrastructure providers, local authorities, community groups, to try and channel some of this economic value and economic benefit that flows from these green spaces back into them to make them better and perpetuating that cycle.
Excellent. You've piqued Assembly Member Bough's interest with a short question.
Yes, very, very short. Well, we're well ahead of time. Is that data that you can share with us on the London Assembly?
Yes.
And could it be presented in I don't know if you've done this, on a return on investment model? Because that's very attractive to accountants.
I'm not an accountant, but I can ask my economics.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I'm not seeing any more hands being raised. Excellent. So we've reached the end of the first panel discussion. Could I thank our guests for their time and their contribution today? We're now going to adjourn for 5 minutes while we change panels. There we go. welcome back to today's Environment Committee meeting. We will now continue our discussion on London's regional parks and connecting people and nature. I'd like to welcome our second panel of guests. We have Alex Goodship, Head of Transport Policy, Active Travel and Public Transport at TfL, Kate Conto, Policy and Public Affairs Manager at Ramblers, and Hannah Such, CEO and co-founder of Go Jauntly. Excellent. So, we have our sets of questions, and I will take the first one. So this is to everybody. Since the London Environment Strategy and the Mayor's Transport Strategy committed to improving and promoting the Walk London network and access to green space in 2018, what, in your view, have been the biggest achievements? Alex, do you want to kick this off? Oh, microphone, yes, of course.
My first time doing this, if you can't tell. So, yeah, this is the Walk London network is obviously an incredible asset for London. It's one of the biggest leisure walking networks of any city in the world. And there's a huge amount that's been achieved over the years. In recent years, obviously, the big change that's happened is the introduction of the Green Link Walk, which is the route that goes from Epping to Peckham. It connects 40 acres of green space, 15 miles long, connects with 5 other strategic routes as well. And what's really good about it is it's accessible. So it's on, it doesn't have any steep gradients. Some of the key kind of access barriers were removed from the paths, bollards and guardrails and so forth. And it adheres to the 7 design principles that we have in our pedestrian and in our walking toolkit, which is for safe, inclusive, comfortable, direct, connected, legible and attractive routes. And when it was launched, there was lots of social media activity and partnership work that was done between TfL, working with organisations like the local buyers club, so that people that were using the route along the local in the local areas could get discounts in businesses. Other achievements have included digitising the network, which Go Jauntly might want to talk about a bit more, but we commissioned them back in 2022 to produce digital maps. And then the work that's been done on maintenance, led by my other colleague from the Walking Forum at the Ramblers, which has enabled us to provide more information and guidance to boroughs on what to invest in. And also we've published the access control guidance, which is for boroughs and other partner organisations to ensure that the bollards and that other kind of infrastructure that is put into these kind of routes is appropriate and inclusive, so that people who want to use the routes, wheelchair users and so forth, can access them without any trouble.
Excellent. Kate, Hannah, either?
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So in 2018, we actually won the Mayor of London Civic Innovation Challenge, which afforded us the opportunity to work with TfL. So very early on, we digitised the Capital Ring network, and we also added things like a station-to-station walking map to aid walking between stations. We also, since then, have integrated the whole of the Walk London network on the Go Jauntly app. There's also walking challenges available that people can sign up to for free, and all of the walks are available for free. And in terms of like some of the greatest achievements, we've reached hundreds of thousands of people through the Go Jauntly app. We've had around 4.5 million impressions, and we've had around just over 76,000 individual users walk those routes on the Go Jauntly app. And people traditionally usually bring one other person with them or a couple of other people. So, you know, that's double, tripling the impact of these routes. So I think that's been like a really great achievement to be able to work together and deliver those kind of results.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, thank you. So from a Ramblers point of view, there's been 3 big achievements since 2018. The first one is that we have a volunteer network in London. We have 12,000 Ramblers members in London, and a good cohort of those are volunteers. And they set up a new volunteering project in 2019, looking specifically at the Capital Ring and the London Loop. And it's a volunteer wardening scheme, so our volunteers have adopted different sections of the Loop and the Ring They monitor it, they audit it, they report problems when they arise, and they promote to the ring and the resource, the excellent resource that these routes are. And at this point, in 2019, the routes were about 20 years old. Responsibility for them had transferred from TfL to the boroughs, and so a lot of boroughs were kind of unaware that these routes even existed or they had responsibility for them. And signage had deteriorated. A lot of the route guidance would refer to different sort of landmarks and waymarks that just weren't even there anymore. So what the Ramblers Volunteer did was update the route guidance, add discs and stickers, and replace lost waymarking posts, and also look at things like getting rid of stiles, which are a real barrier to accessibility. And so that volunteer scheme has been running since 2019, and we've since expanded it to the Green Chain Walk. So, yeah, that's one great improvement. And the other one was, which Alex has already mentioned, which is the Green Link Walk, which is a brand new Walk London route, which is fantastic to see. And the third thing I'd mention is TfL published a London leisure walking plan, which sets out an ambition to create the largest, greenest, most accessible urban leisure walking network. And as far as we know, this is the first sort of plan of its type in the world to actually look at leisure walking provision, how people access green routes in an urban place. So it's really fantastic in that it provides a sort of focus and an ambition for getting people out walking in green spaces. And it set out some actions that will help achieve the overall ambition. So that's been a great step forward.
Okay, thank you. This one is a question just for Alex. It's just, how is TfL supporting access to green space? So through the public transport provision, I should have added.
Yeah, access to green space is obviously really important for Londoners' well-being, physical and mental well-being. We last week published our new walking and wheeling action plan. And one of the themes within that is about proving access to green spaces and to waterways as well. And there's various actions within that section of the plan, including the creation of our ambition to create a new strategic walk from Shepherd's Bush to Bexley over the next few years, and also to improve connectivity, as you say, from public transport hubs to the waterways and green spaces. And we've also committed just to carry on the work that we're doing to support the boroughs with maintaining the walk network through the LIPS process as well. As you said, we've got our leisure walking plan as well, which sets out our ambitions in this regard for improving access and also maintaining the links. Some of that is funded, some of that's unfunded, but it sets out what the priorities are as and when funding becomes available for us to deliver those actions. The work that we do on expanding the cycling network is also relevant here. So leisure destinations are part of the strategic cycling analysis. So that helps to inform the priorities in terms of investment and expansion of the cycle network across London. So, for example, Cycleway 18, which is one of our newest routes, connects several parks and also runs along the Poole River. C40 accesses the West London Regional Park, which we were talking about earlier. Brent River Park, Pitsanger Park, Ealing Common and the Thames going down to there. And then more broadly, all of the investment that we make through the Healthy Streets approach in walking and cycling across London obviously helps to improve the access to these spaces more generally. Our LIPS guidance supports boroughs to invest in access to green space. So while the maintenance of the routes is the responsibility of the boroughs, more sort of structural improvements and bigger schemes, they can come to us for funding and apply for that through their LIPS. And they can also obviously apply for funding for schemes that connect people walking and cycling to the network as well. And then we facilitate the Walking Forum, which these people sitting next to me are both part of, as well as lots of other partners as well who play a part in maintaining these routes and improving access to them. And we support partners with some of their activities as well.
Okay. And just on the announcements that you get on buses, for example, how frequently do you review the announcements which are made to include things like a light here for local Park X or a light here for Canal Towpath Y?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can get back to you on that.
Yeah, that'd be useful. Thank you. Okay, Assembly Member Mafusa's got the next question. Thank you.
Thanks. Alex, to start off with yourself, your name was mentioned a few times, as you know, in the last panel in regards to the introduction of the new West London Regional Park and obviously the funding that you've allocated towards that. What do you envisage in terms of your involvement so far with the developing of those plans we heard about wayfinding and so on?
So we're not a partner in the West London Park itself. Obviously, that's the two boroughs that it sits within. But our role will be to support access in the way that I've just described, really through the LIP programme and through the new cycleways that we deliver as well. And we can help with, social media promotion, guides and investment in some of the structural changes if boroughs choose to apply for funding for that through the LIP process.
And I know certainly in Ealing there's been significant investment along the Canal Towpath and along the Capital Ring, which obviously runs through a lot of the West London Regional Park. But how do your current plans with the walking and wheeling action plan differ from what's currently being invested in the Capital Ring, for example?
Yeah, so the Capital Ring obviously runs through the new West London Park. I don't think it's finalised yet what the route that they were talking about this morning, in the earlier panel, will be yet. So I'm not quite sure how those two parts will interact. I don't know whether you guys are...
I would just say that looking at the maps that have been published, it looks like there's quite a lot of alignment between the Capital Ring and the proposed line of the West London National Park.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've know it incredibly well, and certainly the connection between Horsenden Hill and, for example, and Perivale would be through the Capital Ring. In terms of your current proposals for the walking and action plan, though, are they significantly different to the alignment with the Capital Ring, or is it pretty much aligned? Would you say, Alex?
So we have obviously the existing Walk London network, which includes the Capital Ring. The walking action plan includes the proposal for a new route which goes from Shepherd's Bush to Bexley, which will be an addition to the Walk London network. And then the walking action plan also proposes this improvement of connectivity between public transport hubs and walking blue and green spaces. And that's where we've allocated some money, which is what Abby was mentioning in the previous session for those things.
And you talked about, obviously, the council would lead in terms of applications for LIP funding for improvements in the locality. What they wouldn't necessarily direct would be changes to bus routes or other transport changes and so on. Is it any thoughts currently going into how that might change as a result of the introduction of the regional park?
So I don't believe that there's that would be happening yet, and that would probably come later in the process. But certainly the public transport service planning guidelines would respond to the creation of new destinations like that, where there was the demand. So that's something that could certainly be looked at.
And this one's probably maybe more for Hannah or Kate, but we talked about the Capital Ring already. It runs pretty much right through the spine of the regional park. Do you have any data as to how much usage there is along that route at the moment, either anecdotally or data with your app, perhaps, Hannah? And I just wondered as well whether I know TfL have done some work with both Google and Apple Maps as to trying to use some of the data as to how people travel. What data do we currently have about usage?
Was it specifically about the new park or about the Capital Ring?
Well, primarily about the new park, but also generally about the Capital Ring.
As we don't have the route yet, we actually don't have as much data. But ask us in 2 years when the route's on the app, we'll have some data. But it might be useful. But when we launched the Green Link, let me just check notes. We created the 50-mile walking route together with the footways, living streets, ramblers and other people. And it launched around February 2025. And in the first 2 years, we had over 1,700 individual app users using it. So again, we could double, triple that, assuming that they would bring their friends and their family, which you'd hope. But what I would say, I was going to mention it later, but now might be a good time. What we would recommend is ongoing promotion. So the Green Link launched a couple of years ago. It now exists, on the TfL website, and maybe people who see signage if they live nearby. But actually, since it's launched, the people walking the route has gone down by 50%. So I think it points to a need to continuously promote these assets, because otherwise people won't remember that they exist after the kind of initial burst of activity.
Sorry, just before you come in, Kate, as well, I don't know if there's any feedback you've received from people who have used the route. And I know sometimes with some of these routes that, they can look pristine and quite easy to get through to start off with, but, and it's great in terms of nature, but sometimes nature takes over some of the paths and make it more difficult to get through. Is that?
Yeah, I've not really seen that too much. We have a feature on the app which allows people to give us feedback on a specific step on a route. And sometimes with like the London Loop, you get trees felled or things like that from like high winds. And so people might say to us, oh, hey, there's a tree down here. So we can update the route, and then we can also let the local authority know. We do get, we work quite closely with the Inner London Ramblers, who do an amazing job of like maintaining the routes. Sometimes we get people saying, oh, someone's nicked the signage and stuff like that. So again, we'll let people know if that's happening. But honestly, it's not. I don't get much feedback on the routes that's negative.
Yeah, I'd just add that yes, our volunteer wardens will pick up on problems and then report them to local authority, and then we have guidance on our London Ramblers website, which lets people know where there's problems, where there's diversion, so they can keep up to date with that. And we have a little bit of data about how many people might be using these routes. So London Ramblers provide sort of detailed route guidance that they update annually on the website. And this guidance has been available since 2020. And since 2020, there have been 700,000 hits on that particular webpage just for the Capital Ring alone. So it seems to be very popular.
And Alex, do you have anything, in terms of walking and cycling even, that you get from Google or Apple Maps data?
Yeah, we have a lot of data more generally on the way that people travel around London, obviously. So we have the London Travel Demand Survey, which is the big survey that we do every year, which is reported in Travel in London. And a lot of that data is then made available at a borough level as well. So for the boroughs that the park is in, so for Ealing and Hounslow, you can get quite granular data for some of the things that we collect. We also produce borough data packs, so that boroughs can, when they're preparing their LIPs, look at the data that relates to that area and come up with the schemes which are most specific to that area. We have the activity-based modelling as well, which helps us to understand the potential for changing travel behaviour in future, which would also be useful for, I think, planning the park. And then there's data available from other partners like Sports England. So we know how much physical activity people in those boroughs are doing currently, and what the potential is for getting that up to the level that we would hope it would be. And then we also provide boroughs with some spatial data as well. So we have the strategic neighbourhood analysis, which looks at where the priorities are for improving walkability of neighbourhoods, and also the severance data, which looks particularly at severance, pedestrian severance. And then, as you said, I was going to come on to this when we talk about wayfinding, but we had a summit with some of our technology partners back in 2024 as well, to kind of explore what the potential is, and Google and Apple are working quite closely with us to improve some of the data that we have for these modes, which will definitely be useful in future.
And talking about some of the underserved communities that we talked about in the first panel, do you get that sort of granularity of data that shows perhaps in terms of, which types of groups are using our green open spaces and which ones aren't?
TfL doesn't have data on that, but the GLA does have data on that London is accessing nature, and that does break it down by the different groups, and you do see that some groups are very much lower in terms of their access rates than the average Londoner.
It'd be great if you could share some of that data we've talked about just now.
Yeah.
And just going back to yourself, Kate, so you're involved, obviously, Alex just mentioned in terms of wayfinding, and it's incredibly important, obviously, whether you're walking, cycling or going through these spaces. If it's the first time you're going there, you need to know where you're going and not feel lost. So we've got the Capital Ring. Of course, what improvements do you feel are still needed in terms of along this route?
Excuse me. So the Capital Ring, our volunteers tell me, is in pretty good waymarking order, and there aren't any stiles on it, which is great for accessibility. I understand that some of the problems that still need to be fixed really require the involvement of the boroughs rather than volunteers, because it's more things that require more tools and people with training to sort of realign signposts and that sort of thing. Seasonal flooding is also a real problem, particularly in the winter on some sections of the route, especially where there are gradients, which could be dangerous if people fall over. So I think those are the main improvements that are needed on the Capital Ring. But we provide audit reports to all the boroughs and I think to TfL. We make those available every year.
It'd be great if you could share that latest audit report. Thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
Alex,
right. So the Ramblers volunteers, it's a fantastic, rich data source that we get, and then we can share that with the boroughs as part of their borough, the lip packs that we provide them when they're preparing their lips. So it's all in there. It basically falls into sort of accessibility improvements, wayfinding improvements, connectivity improvements, and infrastructure improvements that are needed.
And just sticking with the Capital Ring, one final question in terms of the role of the CRT here, because the towpath is fantastic, amazing space that we've got, or the towpaths that we've got across London, but they are vary in terms of the quality of what they're like right across London. What work's going on with the CRT to try and make sure that we level up, so to speak, to make sure that they are of a certain level of standard that people can use year round?
Yeah, so the CRT are part of the Walking Forum, so we do all work together, but we don't have a sort of funding relationship with them.
Sure, but sometimes the LIP money will go into improving towpaths. Sometimes they'll put their own money in. What's the vision for improving towpaths across London so that they are at the same, at least a sort of minimum standard?
As is set out in the leisure walking plan, there is a certain level of standard. As I mentioned, the Planning for Walking Toolkit, which sets the standards that we would hope to achieve. In terms of specific plans that the CRT have got, I'm not able to comment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next question goes to Assembly Member Polanski.
Thanks, Chair. Hi, Kate. What do you think are the main barriers to people's access to walking and wheeling around green spaces?
I think there are several. I think information is a key issue. Physical signage and waymarking are really important. They're important for people who don't have a lot of experience, who don't have a lot of confidence, people who may not be aware that the route is even there. Having more detailed route information is really important, particularly for people who might have particular accessibility needs, so they know what they can expect when they go out on a walk. Quality is also a big issue, so surfacing, seasonal flooding, as I mentioned before, is a big issue. And things like stiles. I said there aren't any stiles on the Capital Ring, but there are about 41 on the London Loop, and our volunteers are trying to work with the boroughs to get those replaced with gates where it's possible, but it takes a long time because you have to find out who the landowner is, negotiate with the landowner, find the funding, get permission, all those sorts of things. Safety is also an issue, so we're aware that the strategic routes sometimes come up against roads that have 40-mile-an-hour speed limits, and there isn't a a crossing, sufficient crossing. So we think those things need to address, maybe speed reduction measures in some places. And there's also the issue of proximity. So this was discussed by the last panel, but people need spaces nearby. They need to know that there are routes nearby. They need to know they can connect with the network nearby if they're really going to make use of it.
Thank you. Can I just ask on the styles, has there been instances where there are styles that you want to replace with gates and the landowner's just refused?
I can't think of any specific examples, but I suspect that strongly that is the case. Sure. I know that's the case outside of London. And currently, national legislation says that landowners do have a veto for any reason as to whether or not they want to replace the style with a gate. So.
Thank you. Hannah, if I can come to you with the same question as what you see as the main barriers to walking and wheeling around green spaces.
There's so many barriers. How long have we got? We talked about some already, but one of the things that has really kind of drew me to my cause was that I come from a second-generation immigrant, and as a child, we never went out to green spaces. We never did any of that kind of stuff. It was the 80s and 90s. We used to drive everywhere. But so I came to it very late on in life, and I live in Lewisham, and I lived there for 5 years, and I didn't know about 4 or 5 of the incredible green spaces that are around. And the science is really strong. We've talked a lot about access, I think, in the previous panel, and we kind of talk about it here, but it's not just about access, it's what you do whilst you're in that space. So the science shows, actually, that the more connected to nature you are, the more likely you are to preserve it, which is really important for the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis. And the way to do that isn't just to kind of direct people through a park. It's actually to encourage them to tune into nature and all of the nature around you with your senses. So instead of just walking through the park, you look up at the sky, enjoy the clouds, feel the breeze on your face, listen to the bird song. It's those things that can bring about clinically significant improvements to mental well-being, and people don't realise that. So the barriers for me, as someone who didn't walk, I don't like mud, still don't like mud. So I want to know if there's mud on the route. I want to know if there's benches, there's toilets. We've spoken about that. I want to know if there's baby changing. I want to know if I can get my pram down it. I want to know where the exits are, where the nearest bus stops are. There's so many barriers to walking, but that's really what we focused on, is trying to break down those barriers. So we use things like photo-led guides to help you navigate. Because if you don't know where you're going, you can feel quite a lot of apprehension about where you're going. But if you can see, oh yeah, I'm going to walk by a pond, there's a quiet bit, I've got to cross a bridge, and on the other side of the bridge I get to open space, then that helps build confidence. So it's really sort of a little bit of hand-holding. The Capital Ring and a lot of these strategic routes, they are amazing. However, we have to remember that they are quite long, 150 miles or something for the Capital Ring. You can do it in 14, it's not that long, it's 78 miles. The London Loop is longer. You do it in 14 sections. You've got to have at least 4 hours available to go and do it. And not everyone can do that. I don't think I could do that. I don't know when I'd fit it into my life. Currently, it is the most popular walking route on the app. People absolutely love it, and they see it as very much of a challenge. So what I was thinking, especially with the new West London Park and all of our routes, what would be amazing is if we could create short loops that take in parts of the Capital Ring, parts of the Green Link, parts of a bit more like some of the Jubilee Walkway routes, so that people can actually incorporate them into their everyday lives. It's not just something you do at a weekend or a bank holiday weekend. Yes, that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to say. Does that answer your question?
That's said beautifully and passionately. So, Alex, coming to you, I guess partly, do you recognise these barriers, and what do you think needs to be done to overcome them?
Yeah, and I mean, I also bring some personal experience to this. My daughter's a wheelchair user, and there is nothing more frustrating than coming to a situation where you've got 2 bollards that are slightly too close together and you can't fit through. You have to take everything apart. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, these barriers are all very much ones that I would recognise. I think also the street environment around, on the route to these links as well can present barriers. So it's a lot of the stuff that we've talked about that we need to do. We need to improve connectivity. We need to remove those access barriers. wayfinding, I think, is really important. I think we're going to come on to that, so I won't say too much about that now. And then also maintaining and promoting the routes. You guys also talked about that, the importance of continuous promotion, I think, is really key.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Assemblymember McCartney, were you wishing to come in?
Yes, if I can. I think it's great we're improving walking routes. I represent Enfield and Harringay. I know there's been some improvements in some of the routes in my area, particularly in Enfield, but I do know that some of the local ramblers have been quite concerned that although pathways may have been widened, they're now dual passing pedestrians and walkers and cyclists, which can cause some conflict. I'm just wondering how that is mitigated and if there is an issue at all. Perhaps Kate, I could start with you.
Yes, I think that's quite common with shared routes, and I think walkers always prefer sort of segregated provision if there's the space for it. There's not always the space for it, just because you might not necessarily hear someone coming up behind you, and you don't want to always be walking in a single file. If you're walking with someone, you want to walk alongside them. So yes, we do recognise that as an issue, but there's all kinds of constraints, and it depends on the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, I'd also recognise that as an issue, and it's obviously an issue in street space as well, and shared space is obviously an area of quite strong contention all over the network. I would say, though, for some of these routes, there is, when we haven't talked much about social safety, but a certain level of usage of the routes is actually quite helpful for helping people to feel reassured that there's other people around as well, so that can provide some advantages, particularly for some of the more quiet routes where you do have a bit more footfall.
Thank you. Assemblymember Boff.
Ms Conto, how important is it to maintain the public footpaths in London?
As you might expect, I'd say very important.
Yeah.
It's only the outer boroughs that actually have rights of way, which are commonly known as public footpaths. So in inner London, there aren't any footpaths, but the strategic routes, they do come through inner London. So
the Mayor, through Barking Riverside Limited, has rerouted footpath 47, which used to be by the side of the Thames and then is now a little way back. It's actually now moved away from the nature. He says it's temporary. Would you want him to ensure that that's only temporary?
I'm not familiar with the particular footpath, but yes, I think, we would, if a route is diverted, we would always like it to return to the original line of the path unless there's a very good reason for it.
Thank you very much. There's no good reason to not move it back, apart from the fact that development pressure in the area, and that's always of some concern. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a question for everybody. What's the role of physical wayfinding and digital tools such as Go Jauntly or TfL Go in promoting walking routes through green spaces? Hannah, do you want to?
I'll take that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I'll speak to the digital wayfinding specifically, but there is also a role for physical wayfinding. But I think it's great for raising awareness about the routes as well. So quite often if you're on a bus or you get the tube, you won't see some of the signage that's mentioned. And I briefly mentioned this when I spoke earlier about how it can help people build confidence on what to expect on the route, because the fear of the unknown is real. And so we can help with that. We use photo-led guides, like I mentioned, and we can also provide organisations like the Ramblers or TfL with anonymised behaviour data. So how many people have walked the route? So I've kind of shared some stats as well. So just in a nutshell, like that, I think that is essential, and we've been able to reach a lot of people. You had a question which I think was skipped earlier, but you asked about who currently uses the Capital Ring and other leisure routes. We know in London the gender split of our app users is 56% male, 44% female, and the majority of our app users are aged 18 to 54, which is, and they're urban city dwellers. Like a lot of the other sort of traditional walking apps out there target the already fit, confident hill hikers, and we're very much positioned about getting urban city dwellers out and about. And I think there's other sort of like knock-on benefits of the work that we do. So, for example, with the Capital Ring, we've also got a Capital Ring Challenge on the Go Jauntly app, which encourages you to walk every section. So not just do one section, do them all. And we polled about 300 people who were on the Capital Ring Challenge, and 2/3 of them agreed that walking for leisure actually makes them walk more for active travel purposes as well. And I can go on to talk about that a little bit more. In a smaller pool of people walking the London Loop, 57% said that they now walk more for active travel, which is really important because, and just to clarify, for active travel here, we mean like walking to the shops, to the pharmacy, to school, you know, those everyday trips. And we believe that every walking trip should be pleasurable, whether you're walking to the school or not. So we've also created another digital tool, and it helps you walk from A to B, the leafiest, greenest, least polluted way. So instead of going along main roads and things like that, we actually direct people through green space, blue space. We take in kind of open data such as presence of street trees, which the GLA's got, the busyness of roads, the speed limits and things like that, to encourage people to use all of the spaces and all of the places around them. So I think it has, you know, a superb role in helping people navigate a city in a way that is more tranquil, more pleasurable for them.
Okay, we've heard a lot today about the London Loop and the London Ring, and we're all very familiar with these walks. But for people at home, what's the difference between the two, and what sort of scale are we talking about here in terms of a walk?
So the Capital Ring, I think, is 78 miles, isn't it? And the London Loop is like 140, 150. They're really long. They're challenges. You know, there are some people that have told us they've like walked the whole thing, you know, in a weekend, which is just incredible, like non-stop. But it's not something your everyday person can do, and so it's really important to promote walking everywhere, you know, hyperlocal walking between, you know, going to the park via the shops, you know, all of that kind of stuff is really, really important. These are all of our assets that we need to use.
Excellent, thank you. And let me just see if I have a supplementary follow-up. So,
one of the things that I would just like to add, if possible, is that we work with the Ramblers with the PDFs as well, and people do love PDFs as well as apps. Yeah. So I think sometimes they can complement each other. So some people worry about like battery running out or something like that, or they just prefer a paper map. So actually we have a lot of people using both. So I think they're really important as well.
Excellent. Physical wayfinding, we were touching on earlier.
I think we'd say that the sort of gold standard for routes is that you should be able to walk them without a book or a map. You know, most people don't want to walk looking at their phone or with their nose in a book. So physical wayfinding is really important for that. And it's really invaluable to sort of new walkers, people who are inexperienced. As I said before, you know, like during COVID, we heard a lot of people anecdotally, they'd be wandering around in the neighborhood and they would see a sign for a route that they'd never had time to explore, knew was there, but because of the wayfinding, they were enticed to kind of either set off and investigate it or go home and look it up and then, you know, try to walk it another time. So we think it's really important. And one thing I just wanted to mention is that our volunteers have noticed that sometimes when stations get upgrades, that the signage that directs people from the station to the strategic route sometimes gets lost and doesn't get reinstated. So that's something that we try and notice and get addressed as quickly as possible, but it does happen.
Okay. And one final question is about it's the role of social media and specific activities like the walking and cycling festivals. How they encourage people to get involved? Do you see a marked uptick when there are either push notifications or if there's an actual thing for people to go along to? And does it keep them interested as well? Do you have data on that?
Yeah, I can share some bits and pieces for sure. So I think social media, but also wider, broader marketing is really, really important. Like not everyone is on social media, for example, so you can't really rely on that. And one of my biggest frustrations that I see across the country, not just in London, is that we do all of this amazing work, creating amazing spaces, pocket parks, new parks. But after the launch, there is no ongoing promotion about these places or spaces, and it drives me up the wall. because, you know, we're using like precious taxpayers' money to create all of these amazing things, but then people don't know about them. So I think, you know, like social media is really forgotten about, and, you know, it's probably forgotten about due to funding or other priorities or another shiny new thing, but I think that's really important. So for contrast, and I dug this out, so according to eMarketer, 3.74 billion is spent on road and car digital advertising each year. So that is what we're competing with, essentially, and we're not doing nearly enough. Recently, we did a Visit Bristol takeover during May. It's Living Streets National Walking Month, and Bristol have a long-standing and really well-run walking festival by volunteers and Age UK and Bristol City Council. As part of our work there a few weeks ago, we were invited to do an Instagram takeover of the Visit Bristol account. And during that I think it was like a 3-day period, we had nearly 169,000 views, which was up 8% on the previous 2 day, a reach of 52,000, which was up on 157% on the previous 3 days, and 10,000 interactions, which is up 78% on the previous few days. So we managed to reach a significant amount of people in a very sort of small activation. But this isn't enough. Like, we'll have to keep doing the promotion. But I think it is really important. And I think what I would love to see next year is, you know, potentially, especially with the mention in the walking and wheeling plan, is for TfL, the GLA, Visit London to really get involved in things like the London Walking Festival. Currently, it's run by organisation London National Park City, and they do a lot of work, but they don't have the support of big organisations who have massive reach. Like I think TfL have 353,000 followers on Instagram, 164,000 on TikTok. Unfortunately, there was no post about the London Walking Festival during May, and unfortunately, there was no mention in April or March about walking, which is prime walking season. So it's important, and we should use it, because you have a new and potentially a wider audience available for us to be able to access and get people out to the festival, walking the routes, learning about nature, connecting with nature. So yeah, it's really important.
Excellent, thank you. Any further to add from either Alex or Kate? No? Excellent. We go on. Assembly Member Boff.
Only to say, Ms Thatcher, your marketing's really good, because I've just signed up. So.
New member discount. There we go. Assembly Member Torrell.
Thank you, Chair. Starting with you. How often does anyone out from Go Jointly actually go out and thinking about wayfinding and things? How often do people from Go Jointly actually go out and test that the route that is showing on the map actually matches what's happening on the ground? Because I used your app to do the London Loop last year, so which is a.
I've got fans. This is brilliant.
Don't like where this is going.
So all of the original routes, we've literally stomped. Like, when I started this app, I had no idea that I would literally be boots on the ground walking these routes. Like, the other week I was in Wales, I was in Gateshead, in London. Like, that's what we do. We survey the routes in advance. One of the things about working for Go Jointly is now I can't unsee barriers. So we did a walk around Gateshead recently, and we wanted to make it step-free. And so I've kind of learnt a lot over the years. So I was like walking around going, where's the drop curb? There's no drop curb. I can't go there. You know, there's so many barriers, like bin day. Bin day is the worst day to go for a walk because there's no space. So, yeah, it's really important to walk all of the routes in advance. And I mentioned before that we have the feedback button. So if you'd walked the London Loop and happened across a fallen tree, then you could have said, hey, there's a...
No, I was thinking more when it tried to direct me through a pond. That was
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, we'll speak to the Ramblers about that one, because we worked with them on that one.
Did you follow the route?
No, thankfully I used my eyes and was able to assess where the route was taking me versus... No, I mean, over an 8-day period, I only got lost on about 3 occasions. So the accuracy is... the accuracy there. But that's what I wanted to check was actually what happened. That it's not just a case that the routes are uploaded and then you kind of brush your hands together and say, job done.
No.
Perfect, thank you. And then Alex, moving... we touched upon, Hanger touched upon in one of her previous answers. Obviously, things like the Capital Ring, London Loop, Green Chain, these are walks that you plan to go out and do. They're not just something you stumble upon, think, oh, I'm going to be walking to this meeting, so I'll do this, because I said they're long and they have to be planned to go out and do. One thing I've come across is that actually when you're using just usual general direction like Google Maps and things, that they don't pick up things like public footpaths very much. And when I've raised this with the Walking Commissioner, he's Will Norman. I forgot his name. When I've raised this with Will at a previous committee meeting, he said that the reason behind that is because they pick up the most trodden path, so they tend to follow roads more than actually going out. Are there any in order to boost things like active travelling things, are there any conversations with more of the direction-giving apps that people use to try and address that?
This was one of the things that came out of the summit, which I mentioned previously, and we've had quite a lot of success working with Google on cycle wayfinding, sort of trying to point people to the most attractive and safe routes rather than the most direct or the most trodden, working with those partners. So it's something that's in the sort of longer term aspirations for working with those partners. Yeah. Okay. I think what you're pointing to also just is like the importance of, you know, the street environment more generally just being better for walking, which is also something that we really care about.
Excellent, thank you. This one's for Alex. It's regarding the Walking and Wheeling Action Plan that was published last week. So what are the main priorities for improving access to green space, and what will success look like?
So the Walking Action Plan is focused on just trying to get more Londoners walking more, and to make walking more inclusive, and to support the economic vitality of London's town centres and economy. It's got a number of themes. There's a theme around improving London's places and neighbourhoods, reducing severance and improving connectivity more generally across the capital, making walking and wheeling more inclusive, getting more of London's children and young people walking, and then these very specific actions around connecting to green spaces and blue spaces, and then being ready for the future as well. And it also includes some targets about the proportion of Londoners walking, the proportion of children walking to school, including secondary age children, and a target for central London walking levels as well.
Excellent, thank you. And finally, this is to Kate and Hannah. Bearing in mind you've only got 12 minutes, is there more that the Mayor could do to support access to green spaces? Here's the time to pitch the wish list.
Well, I think TfL has some really great plans and strategies, and we mentioned the Walking and Wheeling Action Plan and the London Leisure Walking Plan. And we'd like to see all the things that have been, all the things in those plans, we'd like to see them actually realised. Some of that's about more investment, both by the boroughs and by TfL. We'd like to see sort of more management and oversight of the strategic routes, Walk London routes. I think the London Walking Forum is really useful, and sort of TfL using their convening power to bring people together to sort of drive forward change. That's really useful, and I think we'd like to see the London Walking Forum continuing, expanding to new members, maybe bringing in people from local authorities to inform discussions and from more diverse groups. That would be brilliant, because some things that need to happen can't happen on a borough level, because obviously these routes cross different boroughs, and sometimes you need TfL to drive forward change across different boroughs. So we'd like to see that happen. And I just say that, you know, walking has been the really poor relation in comparison to cycling for a very long time now, and many more people walk than cycle. It's no disrespect to cyclists, but walking is more democratic. So we would like to see more investment in that. Yeah, I think that's all I'd say.
Excellent.
Oh, sorry, can I add one more thing?
You can.
I just thought of it. So one of the things in the London Leisure Walking Plan was the creation of new routes to add to the Walk London network. And we've had one created a few years ago, the Green Link Walk, and Ramblers, London CPRE, London Sustrans, London Living Streets, and a few others, we came together in 2021 to sort of propose 6 new routes. And so we'd like to see as many of those new routes delivered as possible, because what we have is lots of orbital routes, but we need some sort of spokes on the wheel to go into neighbourhoods and to help people connect with the wider network. So if we could have some of those delivered, that'd be brilliant.
Excellent. Thank you. Hannah.
So a whopping 40% of UK adults are not meeting the recommended activity levels, which impacts their health and well-being. And a recent study by London Sport showed that that the physical activity across London generates about 18.8 billion in annual social value, including more than 2 billion specifically in wider benefits like NHS savings, improved productivity, and reduced long-term health risks. So we know that being more active isn't just good for you, it's good for the community too. And so I think it's really, really important for the Mayor to invest in promotion of all of the concept of walking as a pastime, to promote the Walk London routes more, and to use more non-traditional organic methods to promote it. So the reason why I say that is we've seen year-on-year growth on the Walk London network in-app since we launched in 2018. However, in the last 3 months, the Capital Ring impressions are down 9% for the first time ever. It was up until February 2026, and we're seeing the same with the London Loop. My hunch is that web traffic is down due to the rise of the usage of AI chatbots. And it's a concern because it's replacing traditional search habits and discovery. So people are discovering the routes traditionally through, Google, internet, and finding it. So I think there's a real risk that AI could negatively impact the amount of people walking and discovering these routes. So I think it will be lazy going forward to rely on those kind of traditional methods, which is why I was talking about beyond social media. The TfL have got incredible real estate. What can we do annually, regularly, out of home, PR, paid campaigns to publicise walking in London and getting about in London? Because from now on, things have changed, and we need to kind of think very creatively and innovatively about how people can search and discover the routes in walking in London.
Excellent. Alex, anything you wish to add? You don't have to.
No, that's fine. I mean, there's a number of commitments which we set out in the Walking Action Plan for things that we want to go further on and do more of. So that includes safety improvements and accessibility improvements. We want to deliver 1,000 new pedestrian crossings by 2031, which will all help with this. I think embedding inclusive design principles more generally with the boroughs and right across London is going to be really critical as we move forwards, and that includes improving safety for women and girls as well. We've also committed to doing more work with the London Physical Activity for Health Strategic Advisory Group so that we can sort of access more of the public health teams in the boroughs and try and get closer working relationships with them to promote walking, particularly to improve the inclusivity of it. Because we know that the biggest impacts that we can have are working with the people that are least active. So that's where we can have the most impact in terms of health improvements. We want to improve our walking data. We've said that we're going to relaunch the Walking Forum, try and make it more representative of Londoners, and we can certainly think about bringing in borough representatives as well. I think that's a good idea. And we want to publish a Streets for Children toolkit to help boroughs think more about how they involve children in planning the street environment and walking routes as well.
Excellent. Now, while you were listening to the last... any further questions from anybody, by the way? No. I asked the previous panel if there was some burning issue that they wish they'd been asked about, and I will offer you the same opportunity. Is there anything that you wanted to say but you weren't asked about? No? All happy. Everything's been covered. Well, thank you very much for your time today and for your contribution. I just need to run through a few bits of housework, housekeeping rather, and we'll be with you in a second. So I'd like to thank all of the guests for their responses. We've now reached the end of the session. Can I ask the committee to note the report and the discussion? Can we also delegate authority to me as chair in consultation with party group lead members to agree any output arising from the discussion? Can I ask the committee to note its work programme and meeting dates as agreed by the London Assembly at its annual meeting of the 11th of May 2026? Next meeting of the committee is scheduled for 30th of June 2026. It will be a site visit, details of which will be confirmed, but we're going walking, so we'll probably be using the app to navigate. And I have no other urgent business, so that concludes today's meeting. Thank you.